Welcome back to episode 91 of Warrior's Den. Today's guest is Quinn. He is a UTKM Green Belt and trained with me for several years, I think 4 to 5 years, before he moved to Switzerland for opportunities with his wife. He was back for a visit and I asked him to jump on the podcast. Now, Quinn grew up on Salt Spring Island, a small island off the coast of British Columbia, Vancouver, in between Vancouver Island, and he is a mechanical engineer who has worked on particle accelerators, and also now he's working on developing more modern solar panel technology in Switzerland. He is an all-around interesting individual, and we discuss all sorts of things in this podcast, from him growing up on Salt Spring Island, his martial arts experience, how life is living in Switzerland, politics, critical thinking, what science versus scientific method is, and just general thoughts in life. Now, I thought I would start doing something on podcasts that I have not done yet, but I listen to a lot of podcasts and they do this where they take a snippet of the podcast guest and put it at the beginning. It's called a hook. So I'm going to do this on this one, and I'll do it on a few more, and if you guys like it, I'll keep going. So here's the hook with Quinn.
I think it's the responsibility of any citizen to be reasonably well informed on most things. You don't just get to say, well, your appeal to authority, oh, the experts said this. You should at least be able to inform yourself enough to say, is that true? And I don't mean going on fucking Facebook or Google for 5 minutes and finding an article that agrees with your stupid point of view. I mean going and doing the research, finding the academic papers, actually putting the time in. Because let's be clear, your 5 minutes of Google is not equivalent to someone's years of study and work. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you should be able to go actually look into the issue that you're curious about and find a few opposing positions. And you don't want all one side or all the other. You want to get everything.
Okay, so there's a hook. Hope that makes this more interesting, anticipation at least. And I'm going to tell you all about our sponsors, which is basically me at this point. Urban Tactics Krav Maga, turning lambs into lions since 2013. If you want to support this podcast or support us, the best way you can do that, if you're in the Metro Vancouver area, is come train with us. UrbanTacticsKM.com. We have a free trial for those interested. You can try it out for free. If you want to follow us on Instagram, or Instagram is Urban Tactics Krav Maga, Twitter, that cesspool, is Urban Tactics KM, and of course Facebook is Urban Tactics Krav Maga. You can, of course, check out our blog, UTKMblog.com. And I'm very happy to announce that I'm finally getting some of my students to come out of their shell and start writing about their experiences, their thoughts, whatever it may be. It's a good sign to me that the school is growing, because, I think you all get tired of just me talking all the time. So, UTKMblog.com, their current series released by one of my yellow belts, Ted, who's an excellent writer. He was actually telling me how long it took him to become an excellent writer. But anyways, that's the blog, UTKMblog.com. You can, of course, hit the support us and donate to us for support, either one time, monthly, or yearly if you want to. Or you can, of course, go to UTKMU.com. UTKMU.com is where I have my curriculum in video format if you just want to learn along with us or supplement your current Krav Maga training and see what we're all about. Maybe it's just a new perspective or something you never thought about, or a different way, or just the curriculum structure you want to check out. You can get a month or annual passes for both beginner and novice curriculum. Eventually, one day, I'll have the advanced curriculum, though limited access to who can access that. That is UTKMU.com. Another way you can, of course, support me so that I have more time for awesome content of all types. Bottom line is, I don't want to work for other people anymore because I'm too me and I don't fit into the corporate world. So with my wife, we now have a YouTube channel. You can check us out. Joe and John Do Stuff, also on Instagram, JJ Do Stuff. and you can check us out there. And that's more about life, not so much about martial arts or politics. I'm keeping the politics off YouTube due to their censorial behavior. But if you just want to see life stuff, right now it's mostly renovations and cooking, but we'll be adding more how we live life, and you can see what we're all about. So that's Joe and John Do Stuff on YouTube. You can, of course, also support me if you are local, because I'm not shipping basically out of BC. So and you need a fitness equipment, jlfitnesslab.com. This is a company I also owned, taking the opportunity of COVID. So if you need barbells, weight plates, mats, racks, benches, accessories, though there is a limited selection so far, we will build it up as we grow, of fitness equipment to set up your home or garage gyms. You can go to jlfitnesslab.com and you can use the code UTKM5 to get 5% off. Of course, if you get $3,000 or more, you can get 10% off. They do not combine. Some conditions may apply. Of course, if you know me personally, just shoot me a message and it may be easier for you. But if you want to pay by credit card, etc., or check out what we have, go to jlfitnesslab.com. Again, we are not shipping outside of Metro Vancouver, so it is mostly for local people. But we'll see how this response gets. Anyways, I think that is it for now. Again, I'd love to commit more of my time to more content and, of course, be able to hire individuals to help me out. That is the dream. So the more you support me in whatever way, and UTKM, and this podcast, or any of the things I just suggested, the more time I have to produce more awesome content for your education or entertainment, whichever you're choosing to listen to me for. Check that stuff out. So, again, Quinn, UTKM Green Belt, grew up in British Columbia, mechanical engineer, worked on particle accelerators, and now solar panels, was visiting from his move to Switzerland. So, listen to this. Oh, before I continue with the podcast, I just want to remind people, one of the reasons why I do this podcast is I want people to realize that martial arts and self-defense is not for just meatheads. And I'm sorry if that offends people that some of you are meatheads, but there's a lot of very intellectual, very smart people who see the value in being physical and learning combative, such as Krav Maga or Jiu-Jitsu or whatever. It's extremely important to healthy living. This is why I talk about things like politics. This is why I talk about things like science. This is why I don't stay in my lane for those assholes who say you should do that. It's just silliness. It's about encouraging people to think, encouraging people to not feel alone in this world by hearing voices similar to theirs, encouraging people to critically think, realize that self-defense isn't just about punching someone in the nuts or throat. It's about educating yourself against mind parasites, like Godhead's book, the Parasitic Mind, I think, or something, discussing that people are being indoctrinated and into toxic thinking patterns that make their lives miserable. So, I want to introduce as many of my students or martial art colleagues as I can, who they are, what they're all about, so that there you get a sense of who does Krav Maga and martial arts, and it's so much more than just idiots punching each other in the head, because Quinn is a very smart person. So, here is the intro and Quinn. Krav Maga is not just a self-defense system, it is a way of life. Warrior's Den is a podcast for Kravists, fighters, martial artists, warriors, politicians, and general citizens. Consider this. The society that separates scholars from its warriors will have its thinking done by cowards and its fighting done by fools. Lucidity. Your host, Jonathan Fader, talks to guests in an open and uncensored format about their fights, their philosophies, and their lives. No topic is taboo, and the conversation may start in one place and end in another. As the quote suggests, you cannot separate the warrior from the politics and the world around them, as a true warrior must be a student in all forms of art and science.
You're listening to The Warrior's Day. Brought to you by Urban Tactics Krav Maga. turning lambs into lions.
Welcome back. I am here with Quinn, UTKM Green Belt, and general interesting person. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. You know, a little bit tired. Been traveling a bit, but pretty good.
Disappeared to Switzerland, is here visiting. I'm like, get on the podcast.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, of course. So let's just start with your martial arts background. What's your experience?
So I kind of jumped in the deep end. I was looking around at different martial arts schools, kind of at loose ends, and UTKM popped up. I was like, oh, yeah, what's Krav Maga? So called in, like, oh, yeah, come in for a free trial. I was like, all right, oh, cool, I get to hit people. This is fun.
Kick them in the nuts.
And then here we are, like, 5 years later.
Yeah.
Obviously, as you mentioned, UTKM Green Belt. Did BJJ and Muay Thai kind of as a little ancillary additional training, and that was really fun.
Yeah.
I actually think in Switzerland, those are what I'm going to focus on because, well, as anyone who's probably followed you and a little bit of your teachings knows, Krav Maga should be simple, and honestly, there's not like, oh, I need to like learn these really complicated drills or anything.
Yeah.
So at this point, I think my ground fighting and my striking is what I need to focus on.
Yeah. Because, I mean, we focus on it in Krav, but not to the like the high levels of some of those other guys.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like Krav Maga is great for like, oh God, I want to survive. Someone's attacking me on the street.
Yeah.
But if someone knows what they're doing, they probably win.
Yeah. Have you, just out of curiosity, found any Krav Maga schools in Switzerland?
There's a couple. There's at least one kind of Polish variant. Well, the site was half in Polish, a little bit incoherent. It's kind of sketchy, but
you don't speak Polish?
No, I'm working on the ones that are actually easy as opposed to the ones that have a completely different base.
Hey man, I tried to learn French. It is not easy.
Oh no, French is a lovely language made by people who are kind of assholes.
Yeah, well there is that. Quebec and France have their lovely histories. So you're from the islands off the coast of BC, right?
Yeah, so Salt Spring Island, born and raised, little small town boy.
Yeah.
That's me.
What is Salt Spring? Because obviously not everyone's going to know Salt Spring Island.
Okay, so there's like a group of what they call the Gulf Islands between Vancouver Island and the mainland, the continent. And it's just like, I don't know, maybe a dozen total islands. Salt Spring's the biggest one. It's a small community. It's kind of like a very large gated community, honestly, because it's basically got a moat.
Yeah.
You only get there by ferry.
Bunch of hippies out there, right?
Oh, it's actually it's divided in thirds now.
Yeah.
You got 1/3 hippies, 1/3 rednecks, and you got 1/3 rich old people who retired there and don't want anything to change.
Yeah.
Or actually, they don't want anything. They want to change it to what they thought it was.
Yeah. You hear that with all the islands. Like I've heard tons. Like it used to be like a lot of the literally where the hippies went, and then their kids started going there, or other people would go there. Then you get the rednecks, and then for some strange reason, like rich left-leaning individuals go there. The Karens, if you will, ironically.
Oh man, the amount of like NIMBY, just absolute bullshit that goes on. Like most recently, there was a really good bakery on Salt Spring, and due to COVID, they shut down a bit. They didn't have a storefront, but they were doing like pickup and deliveries. Yeah, like 2 days a week, maybe 4 hours a day, just until they sold out of bread. Yeah. Like no time at all. And they had licenses, everything was in order, they weren't breaking any ordinances. They got run out of town by their neighbors being like, oh, it's too loud for 8 hours total a week.
Unbelievable. Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah.
And that's like the same thing that happens to any light industry. You might have heard of Salt Spring Coffee. Yeah. Started on Salt Spring, internal to the community, nice people running it, all local industry. They tried to get zoning for an actual coffee roasting facility on Salt Spring Island. You know, bring in jobs, do a little bit of very light industry. It's coffee roasting. It's not like terrible. And people like voted it down, protested it for the idea that it might possibly in the future be used for something else. Like no idea what, just something.
Couldn't you just make a rule like it cannot be used for anything other than coffee? That's the only thing you're
you absolutely
it
could. But no, we don't solve problems. Yeah. We just say that we don't like something and then make it go away.
Welcome to the world that we're in today.
Exactly.
people think these are problems that just happen in big cities. They happen everywhere because it's really people problems.
Yeah, no, this is exactly it. It's just people who've decided they don't like something and won't change anything.
Yeah. So, you're a mechanical engineer, right?
Yeah, mechanical engineering technologist to be, technically correct.
Technical technologist.
Yeah, that's me.
So how do you go from small town, middle of nowhere boy to that?
You have the realization that there is no real future in anything kind of technological on the island.
Yeah.
And I mean, I grew up kind of building stuff, taking things apart, kind of seeing how things worked. And unless I wanted to go work in like my uncle's auto shop and kind of go nowhere and not see anything, there's no options. Yeah. So I moved over to Victoria, did their mechanical engineering technology program there at Camosun, and then kind of lucked out because that sent me on a path to working at particle physics lab.
Particle physics, that's quite the stretch. I'm just trying to look up the name of someone because he was talking about it. I'll find it in one sec. But it's interesting you said that that you grew up building things with your hands, taking things apart. Eckhart Tolle, that's the guy. I was just listening to an interview with him, and he's an older guy, and he was talking about how kids these days are distracted by everything. Parents are distracted by everything, and when you have nothing to do like you would on a small island, you start exploring the world around you. And he was talking about how you have to take kids out into the woods once in a while just to say, no devices, go. So like you're like a living testament to that argument where if you have nothing to do, you start questioning the world around you, take things apart and build. And nowadays people, what's the new Kardashian thing?
Oh, fuck off with the Kardashians. Yeah. No respect there. Yeah, and it's a good point to make, actually. I think I credit my parents a lot with sort of making me go outside and, like, do stuff. I was a bookworm. I still am a bookworm. Yeah. Like, you could give me a book and I'd just disappear for 8 hours. Book be gone. I'd be off somewhere in a different world. And that's part of why, that's another reason I went into Mech Eng, because you
just used an abbreviation.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Mechanical engineering. Is because you get a lot of, especially if you read science fiction, there's a lot of like, hey, look, these are people or ideas that people have taken and run with and made into reality. And the people who do that, in my mind, are both scientists and engineers. Yeah. So if you want to do that, well, you kind of got to get the schooling and understand how that actually works.
Yeah, that makes sense. So from mechanical engineering, you somehow made the jump to particle physics.
Well, it was still mechanical engineering.
Yeah.
There's kind of an idea that, everyone involved with high-level science or cutting-edge science is a scientist, which is not the case. Every scientist has like a massive support structure behind them. Yeah. So my job was to design parts of experiments, figure out how you can actually get to where the scientists want to be. Because they have this idea of like, I want to test, I don't know, this fundamental property. I want to know about the spin state of this particle. Yeah. Okay. How do you actually do that? And even once you've figured out how you do that, how do you build the system to do that reliably without it costing like $5 billion?
I mean, it still costs a lot. Because you were working on, like, I didn't know until I met you, we have a particle accelerator at UBC, right?
Yeah, it's called Triumph, which stands for Tri-University Maison Facility. Now it's actually supported by something like 19 or 20 universities, a bunch of different national organizations. Yeah. Most of the funding comes from the Canadian government. Yeah. And yeah, it's a pretty impressive facility. It's world class. It collaborates with other big names you've probably heard of, like CERN. Yeah. There's a little bit of crossover with projects like ITER.
I don't know that one.
That's the International Fusion Reactor that they're building in France. Oh, yeah.
I think before you go on, take a step back, because I know a lot of people are not going to have a clue. What is a particle accelerator?
Well, it does exactly what it says on the box. So we're talking about, in this case, usually, technically they're not protons, but they act like protons. Either positive or negatively charged bundles of particles that you accelerate using electromagnetic fields to very high velocities. For example, Triumph has particle beams of basically protons that can move around 70% of light speed, which is impressive because anything with mass moving anything close to light speed is kind of
tricky,
fun. Whereas the electron accelerator that they also have there, which is a different type of accelerator, there's multiple types. More on that later if you want. Can go up to around 90% of light speed, just because the difference in mass is that significant between protons and electrons.
Yeah. Insignificant to the average human being, but as far as the physics is concerned.
As far as the math that drives it.
Everything is falling apart. Ignore the crashing and burning over there.
Yeah,
Just knock something off. So it's so interesting. Like, one of the reasons that on this podcast I wanted to do it, because I wanted to dispel the myth that martial artists are all dumb meatheads. Now, there are dumb meatheads in the martial arts world. There's lots of them. Sorry if I offended you. Not sorry. But you're starting to find a lot of very educated, very smart people are choosing to go into the martial arts, like Lex Friedman, for example, who already did. You know who he is?
No idea.
You'd love his podcast. He's a MIT AI professor or a specialist.
Oh, cool.
But he's black belt in jiu-jitsu and sambo. He's a Russian guy. He's very existential. He's all about love. You should check it out.
Nice.
But you're starting to see more and more intelligent people come out of the woodworks and break the myth that only strong jock types can do. Although you're a strong jock type, sort of.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure. So what drew you to the martial arts in the first place?
A couple different things. For one thing, I'd noticed, like, okay, yeah, I can be a bit of an angry person sometimes. And I know that I actually have a younger cousin who had similar problems with anger management. And he went through karate, and I observed it really change his mindset and help him. Like, okay, that seems good. Also, martial arts are just useful.
Yeah.
Like, it's not about, I want to kick the shit out of people on the street.
Yeah.
It's, no, I want to know where my body is. I want to have an extra little skill set that can come in handy. And also, it's just really good exercise.
Yeah. I mean, says the guy who bikes literally everywhere.
Hey, I didn't bike here. This is a little past my limit for biking.
People who don't know in Vancouver, a lot of people like to cycle. I am not one of them. I don't know how you do it. I don't like the rain.
It's not that bad. It's refreshing.
Refreshing. Yeah. I used to, when I lived in Richmond when I was younger, and then I got older. I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore. But yeah, it's like martial arts is for everyone. Why do you think a lot of intellectuals or smarter individuals growing up choose to look down on physical pursuits?
That's kind of there's multiple answers to that question. And of course,
what do you think?
I think it's easier in general to dismiss things that you're not familiar with.
Yeah.
And if you've grown up just always focusing on entirely on very intellectual pursuits, it's easy to say, oh, well, that other thing isn't important. I mean, I do this, I've caught myself doing this with, like, people who went into the arts.
Yeah.
Because there's definitely, like, there's a little bit of contempt from the engineering side of, oh, you did an arts degree? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's not useful. Depends what you're doing with it, but
And it's not, you got to recognize that it's not about useful. If people are doing what they're really interested in, what they love, then good. Like, I'd far rather have 1,000 people with arts degrees than 1,000 people who do engineering and hate it.
Yeah, that is true. Love what you do, right?
Yeah, I've worked with people who do engineering and hate it. They're miserable. They're miserable in themselves, and they're miserable to work with.
Yeah. Well, engineering, like, my dad's a structural civil engineer, and you guys have a unique way of thinking. Let's say you're pretty open, probably because you grew up on the island, but a lot of, I find, engineers are so rigid in their thinking. Any idea why that might be?
Well, especially if we're talking structural and civil, you kind of develop that mindset deliberately.
Yeah.
Because if you're building a structure, you need to follow the rules. Like, those rules are...
The rules.
Well, you've seen, there's famous examples of buildings and bridges collapsing because some engineer skipped a step or they forgot a bit of analysis, like Tacoma Narrows.
Yeah.
It's one of the ones that always gets quoted in engineering because they didn't do basically a wind pressure or wind shear analysis, which means they had no idea that the wind coming through that gorge or whatever was going to make the bridge vibrate at its own natural frequency.
I remember that.
And I'm sure like anyone could look up that video and it is terrifying.
It's crazy.
Because that bridge
is like puddle or something.
It tore itself apart.
Yeah.
Because they didn't account, and it's really easy to account for that. You just have to actually think of it.
Yeah.
So if you want to know why people get into a rigid mindset, it's because, well, if you don't, you make mistakes, and you're absolutely liable and responsible for them.
So what you're saying is, if you stick to 1 degree and one life path, your mind may not be able to understand other ways of thinking very well.
You have to develop that. It's a skill, just like any other skill. You have to actually think and be like, all right, I'm going to put myself out of my own comfort zone. I'm going to shove myself into another mindset. And sometimes your brain really doesn't want to do that. Yeah.
Now, perhaps the reason you're a bit more open is because the type of engineering you do requires a lot of creativity from the sound of it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty specifically a design engineer.
Yeah.
Like, my job is to look at a problem and then ask some questions and then find a solution. It doesn't matter really what the solution looks like as long as I can say, okay, yes, I met your needs, it's not going to fail, and also it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Yeah. Although it's relative to us peons.
Well,
to build a multi-billion-dollar particle accelerator.
I mean, it comes in little steps, right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of what I do will also be consulting on like smaller projects.
Yeah.
Someone comes in and like, oh, I have this like, I don't know, vacuum chamber I want to build. It's like, okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Does it have to be that shape? Because if you make it a cylinder, for example, it's a heck of a lot cheaper and easier to build than making a rectangular prism.
Yeah.
Just because the vacuum doesn't like corners.
Yeah.
And they won't have thought of that because that's not what their goal is. They just need a vacuum chamber.
Yeah.
And as far as they're concerned, boxes are easy.
Because that's how we design everything these days.
Exactly.
Hopefully that'll change. You were talking about, because this is a topic of, it shouldn't be, but it is because of COVID, what is a scientist, what is science? Because you're technically not a scientist, mechanical engineer working in particle physics, but you kind of are a scientist in many ways. So what do you think, how would you explain that to people?
Well, it's kind of an interesting idea because you have what you would think of as formal scientists. These are the people who've made an effort to go into like a cutting edge field or a very advanced field. Like you also do have people who go into mech eng, and they go on and they become research engineers. So they become, in truth, engineering scientists. Yeah. And these are the people who are doing like, oh, hey, what are your material properties, or how do these things work, or they're setting the standards by which all engineers will function. Yeah. But when it comes to being a scientist, that is very attached to just the idea of the scientific method. If you are able to take very good notes, make clear observations, and not try and fit your data to your hypothesis, but go the other way around, then you are a scientist. Like you're not. This idea that you can only be a scientist if you've been educated specifically as a scientist is a little bit warped. Yeah. As long as you are actually being rigorous with yourself and following scientific principles, which you can find anywhere. Like the idea you can only get that through education or through formal education is kind of bullshit.
Especially nowadays with the internet. I know you saw it on the internet. It's like people ask me, John, where'd you get this information? I'm like, the internet. They're like, but I don't know what to tell. I'm like, I read the actual research paper that I found on the internet. And then they'll be like, well, I don't want to read that. I'm like, well, then that's why you're not getting the correct information.
Yeah, and especially nowadays, most scientists or like formal researchers I've talked to are very willing to share their research. Sure. Like, because it's good for them, right? Getting their name out and being like, hey, yeah, I looked at this thing. I can prove this. Here's my data. Please go and look at it. Yeah. Is really good. Yeah. And a lot of the problems with the way that scientific publication is done now is actually the publishing houses.
Yeah,
because
it's falling apart.
Well, yeah, and they have this kind of cartel mentality where like they're trading on the name. Like, oh, you're published in Nature. It's like, well, yeah, but in order to do that, you basically have to bribe them, pay a bunch of money, and like.
Did I tell you that story? I think it was one of those like Nature and Science magazines, which most people like. I don't know what that is, but it's like the premier gold standard. One of them, I forgot what the paper was, but this happened. Is they'd publish some paper. So these are the ones that still do rigorous peer review, still do all this sort of stuff. And they're not just pay to access like some of the other ones that I pay you, you publish no matter what. And they'd publish someone's work, and then when it got published in the magazine, people started reading it and were like, this is bullshit. Like, the way they'd done the experiment is nonsense. And the editor's response was something like, and I'm paraphrasing, like, it's not our job to check it. And we're like, wait, that's literally what peer review is,
that's what it is. And that is several levels of bullshit. Because right now I have a bit of a side gig going that's editing academic papers. And it's mostly with a goal for, like, helping ESL people actually, build their rep. Because the scientific community is very much based in English. So.
Yeah. Which makes sense, because I think in order to find truth, you need to not be caught up in miscommunication. So having a universal language, which happens to be English, is probably a good idea. Yeah, I think. Now, I hope, because I did psychology, and I know psychology is not a real science according to actual, research scientists. I would tend to agree based on what I'm seeing. It doesn't mean you can't use scientific method in psychology, but what I'm seeing is they're not practicing science anymore. But so many of the papers I read were just fluff. Yeah. So I'm hoping that if you're editing, you're teaching people how not to write bullshit.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, it's also, you got to know your audience, and that's part of this whole process is, like, I'll get sent a paper, and part of what I need to know for that paper is, okay, who are you trying to reach here? Because if you're trying to reach your colleagues, your peers, you write absolutely differently than if you're trying to reach the general public. General public, there's no reason or logic behind using jargon and like all of this wordy, verbose crap. Because it doesn't mean anything to most people. Like, okay, I don't know why that you use that term, but if you're trying to publish this and get like international recognition, you can't be saying you have to bring it down to, or actually it's not bring it down, because the general public isn't stupid, they're just uninformed. You have to shift it over to language that makes sense in a broader mindset.
Because so for COVID, I would share research papers with, say, my martial arts colleagues, where I would share legal things going on, and the response I generally got is, I'm not reading that. I'm like, it's 10 pages, like, it's not an extensive, it's not an essay, like, you don't have to sit there and read it all day. They're like, I'm not reading it. And I know what the answer is. They don't want to admit they don't understand what's in the paper. And I don't understand everything, but I can get the gist of it. I think, given the internet has changed access to information, that the future needs to be, you write 2 sets of papers. You spend all the time doing your technical paper for your colleagues, and then you do like a summary paper. That isn't fluff, though. Done in a way that a normal, average English level person could read it and get an idea what the paper is about. And I think the reason why a lot of people don't want to do that is because it's the ego of a lot of academics that are like, well, I'm better. If you can't understand this, I'm like, hey, do you want the funding? You know how you get funding? You make sure the average person knows what you're doing is important, so they tell their politicians they want you to be funded. It's like, you ever see Space Force? Space Force.
Space Force.
I
watched it.
And they're clearly making fun of AOC with that one scene. She's like, could you please explain to my constituents why it costs $20,000 to take an orange up into space? And the general is like trying to explain it, and he just can't. He's just looking, and then the scientist, John Malkovich, is like letting him suffer, and he's like, okay, this is why you need to do it for your constituents. Because people, there's a disconnect, like, with the space race, people don't understand why it's important to do. And why are we spending billions of dollars? Like, first of all, Elon is spending his private money now. This isn't your taxpayer money anymore. Well, it is a little, but And people just have that disconnect. They can't understand. It's like, hey, you want your cell phone? Space race.
Yeah. And it's also, it's a very human thing to be like, oh, well, we can only possibly do one thing at a time. It's like, no, we need to do all the things all the time.
Yeah.
Like, people, oh man, I see this all the time with people talking about climate change. You know, another big hot button issue here. It's not. Climate change is real.
It's real, though. We can talk about that because I'm interested. Because you grew up on the island.
Yeah, I grew up in a place where, like, my parents just kind of composted, recycled, and already kind of had a massive vegetable garden, all this stuff. And they weren't really doing it for climate change per se. They were doing it because it was more economical and reasonable to do.
Shipping to the island is not easy.
Well, yeah, and if you can grow your own vegetables and fruit and whatever, do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, where was I?
Climate change. You were using some example, and then you used climate change about how people can't relate.
Oh, yeah. So people have this idea that every single solution for climate change needs to be this silver bullet that changes everything and will be the one solution for climate change. It's like, nah, you don't need one silver bullet. You need a minigun's worth with millions of people working on different solutions simultaneously.
Yeah.
And we have enough money and enough people to do that.
Yeah.
We just need to stop playing this stupid game of like, oh, this will solve climate change. No, it won't. Not by itself.
Yeah. Well, it's because for me, like, science, observational, what I can see, and I find a lot of scientists forget anecdotal evidence is the basis of all science. You start with that.
Well, observations.
And I can say from when I was a child, the seasons were, in Vancouver, it was pretty consistent. You really had 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, or 4 months. And now it's like long summers, long winters. So just from a pure observation, you can see the climate change. Where a lot of people get hung up on is the words, because it was global warming, and then they get hung up on that, and they play these silly little games. However, the issue is when you have dickheads like John Kerry and like Bill Gates running around saying all the dumb shit they're saying, because actually they're driving, what they're doing is they're playing politics, and they're not actually trying to solution. And I say that because John Kerry, who's former, he was in the Obama and Clinton administrations, but he was caught on tape recently admitting their policy towards Iran is not climate change related, but why they keep treating Iran with kids' gloves is because they're not actually trying to solve the problem. They're trying to kick the can down the road. So a lot of these loud politicians aren't actually trying to solve the problem. They're kicking the can down the road so it can make it look like they're doing something and get reelected. So when you throw those people into the mix who are controlling all the funding and screaming at people, you're not solving anything. Yeah. For example, the oil thing, it's like Canada's fucked economically because of the way people approached the whole oil thing. Yep. It's like, guys, this is our main resource. Our economy kind of relies on it fairly heavily. And while we should transition away from it, you basically stopped it dead in its track and have no replacement now. Yeah.
I mean, I can also speak to that. Like, oh, man. Yeah, so our lovely federal government here in Canada.
the most beloved government ever that's probably going to get reelected because fucking Toronto.
Yeah. Anyway. There's this fun idea that somehow you can just remove something and the fact that you created a vacuum won't be a problem.
Yeah.
You can't say to millions of people working in the tar sands or whatever, hey, we're going to take your job and say, no, you're not allowed to do this because of climate change, especially in Canada where, you know, most people like a little bit warmer. That'd be fine.
Yeah. In Vancouver especially.
Yeah. But you can't just do that and not have anything to replace it. Like, the way to actually do that is to say, okay, look, we need to transition away from this. Here are your retraining programs. Here's your stimulus into other industries. You can't just say, fuck this industry, it's gone, and then not provide another option. Because these are people, like, most people working in the tar sands aren't evil or wrong or, like, inherently bad. They want a job. This one was offered to them. In some cases, offered, like, in high school.
Yeah.
And what kind of 17 or 18-year-old is going to give up, like, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year?
Which they all spend on hookers and blow, but, you know.
Well, you know what? You're 17 or 18. What the heck else are you thinking with? And that's the thing. You got to actually provide an alternative. You can't just say, this is done, screw you.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, exactly that. You're going to screw your economy. You're going to create this massive resentment and this hostility towards, well, scientific fact, which is stupid.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you accept that climate change is real. You don't say, hey, we're just going to screw over an entire class of people because we think climate change is bad.
Yeah.
You say, these people could be a driving force behind actually transitioning our economy. We're going to invest. Maybe we're going to go into debt to train them into different industries.
Yeah.
That will pay off. Educating people and giving people skills pays off. This is not hard math.
Yeah.
It's just more long term than any politician will ever think.
Yeah. It's like this gets, a lot of people might not know what I'm talking about, but the whole learn to code thing. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Man, did they screw that up. Who originally said that? Someone I respect. It was an intellectual, like a Silicon Valley intellectual, I'm blanking on his name, who said learn to code. What I believe they really meant was you have to learn the fundamentals of everything and learn how it works in order to learn and grow and develop. And then all the politicians are like, it literally means learn to code, or the future is in coding. And now it was a huge thing on Twitter, which needs to die, that cesspool of nonsense. Yeah. They're just like, you're a coal miner, you need to learn to code. I'm like, hey, a third generation coal miner is probably not going to learn to program. You need to stop saying that.
Yeah.
You need to give them an alternative that's more in their wheelhouse, something mechanical, blue collar and oriented. Yeah. And then it's I think you're getting a lot of people, the elites or eco douchebags. Like I'm all for transitioning, but to eco-friendly stuff. But there's a way to do it,
yeah,
and a way not to do it. And they're just like, okay, so you want to shut down the coal industry, which is probably a good idea, but what's your plan? Same thing.
Yeah.
And I think it was only 70,000 jobs in the U.S., which is actually not a lot compared to, say, the oil industry in Canada,
yeah,
which is probably a million jobs or something with all the subsidiary things.
Ancillary.
But nobody wants to sit down and make a plan. And then you find out the Canadian oil industry, for example, is the reason why we never built refineries here is because the American Texas oil companies were blocking it. And actually a lot of the pipeline protests were funded by American oil companies.
Yeah, and like, oh man, there's all kinds of little proxy things like that. And of course, because of mostly because of money.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever going to build a refinery in Canada.
Yeah, at this point, it's not happening.
It's not happening at all. It should have happened like 40 years ago. Actually, it should have happened around the end of the Second World War. Yeah. Just kind of like, well, okay, that's a whole other thing about how North America's industry wasn't screwed. Europe's was. It was a huge opportunity for Canada, but
Canada had boring politicians back then.
Well, Canada was and still is a natural resource extraction economy for the most part. And there was no real impetus to transition and diversify. Yeah. Which, I mean, the U.S. kind of went ham on that. Like, the fact that they took what they built during World War II and just, like, ran with it is fantastic. It was only, like, I don't know, relatively recently that they screwed that up.
Yeah. It was the 70 oil crisis, hilariously, and then they shipped off a lot of manufacturing.
Yeah, just, export all your, lower level but still good jobs to other places because money.
Now it's hard to bring them back because the cost of workers is so expensive and people don't realize. If you keep bringing up the minimum wage, because people don't realize that the reason everything's getting more expensive is a lot to do with policy. And they don't want to admit it's actually the government's making. Yes, there is the supply and demand thing, which will drive it up. Yes, there is inflation, but a lot of the extra costs is policy that is attempting to fix things, but it's just making things worse.
Yeah, and I mean, there are several ways that policy could help solve things, like, okay, housing. Maybe don't let corporations come in and buy entire neighborhoods out from under people.
Like Richmond, there was some billionaire came in and just bought up a huge section of the city.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Like, how the fuck do you justify allowing that?
Yeah.
And it's, anywhere in the world. Like, for example, I'm living in Switzerland. The general policy there is if you don't live there, you don't get to own property.
Yeah. That's racist according to Canadians.
Well, no, it's not. me saying, hey, if you don't live here, you shouldn't own property is not, I am in no way targeting an ethnic group. I'm not saying any specific group. Frankly, there's a lot of Americans who come up here and own property, and they're pretty similar to me ethnically.
Yeah.
And I still don't like it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying, oh, hey, mainland Chinese are terrible. Like, no, they're not. They're just people. They want to go somewhere safe and clean, and I completely understand that Canada's kind of awesome that way. Yeah. But we like to live here too, and you coming in with more money than we will ever see, and basically holding a place empty for yourself, isn't good for anything.
Well, it's hilarious. And so in Vancouver, for those who don't know, it is predominantly wealthy Chinese people driving it up. But again, it's not an ethnic thing, because let's say you go to Israel, the property value is going up because the wealthy American Jews are driving. So it's foreigners with money coming in and driving property value up, and not then contributing to the overall society. So the BC government previously implemented like the empty home tax. If you don't have renters, or you don't have, or if you're not living in the property, you have to pay this ridiculous tax. And it is ridiculous because a lot of the people are so wealthy, they'd rather pay the tax and not rent. And also then we have insane renter laws in BC, which protect just total garbage people who are ruining properties. And that's why no one wants to rent to people. I can speak from personal experience. But the thing is, it wasn't even that slowed the house market down. It was actually what the Chinese government did, because they're desperately trying to keep people from fleeing. So they started locking down the money in China. So all of a sudden it's getting harder and harder for these people to get money out of China. And that's what slowed down the market originally, not our own government. And they're like, look at what we did. It's like, you didn't do anything. You just actually made the rental market harder, guys.
And I mean, people will take credit for anything they can that looks like it might be their doing.
Well, it's like misassociation. It's like the mask thing for COVID. Has anyone actually done any significant looking into if this actually stops this pandemic or even slows it down? No, because they don't want to touch it with a 20 million foot pole. But I didn't know this. So I remember early on, I was saying wear masks. I was saying that because I wasn't sure. And for me, I'm like, if they don't know yet, it might be a good idea. Then I found out there's over 100 studies globally that basically says, and globally means it's been done in multiple countries with multiple ethnic groups, that, hey, guess what? Masks don't really work for coronaviruses. They don't really work that well. Now, if you're going into a store for 15 minutes, it actually might. That's the exposure limits and stuff. But if you're in an office building for 8 hours with recirculating air, not really. And then I looked at Taiwan. People would point to Taiwan earlier. So what Taiwan did early was what everyone should have fucking done, which was, hey, we have our 2004, 2005 plans from SARS-CoV-1. Let's implement it. So every Western government is a liar when they're like, we don't know what to do. It's like, you literally had...
You wrote this document.
You wrote these documents. You literally didn't follow them because you wanted your ideas. So Taiwan implemented it, and one of them was you need to close the borders. Until at least you can sort things out. So Taiwan did really good early on. Now we're finding out they had an outbreak recently. Now, Western governments were saying originally, well, in Asian countries, they do what they're told. They're doing what they're told. That's why they're doing better. It's like, no, it's because their governments followed the plans, idiots. But now they're having an outbreak. So here's a population that I know is wearing masks religiously, and they're actually ratting each other out like 1984 style if you don't follow the rules, which is a whole nother problem. But it shows the masks don't stop the spread in en masse. You can actually see these, and they'll be like, that's not double-blind placebo effect study. But I don't need to. It's not stopping the spread. Now you go back at the beginning of the pandemic, and you listen to virologists and immunologists, and what were they saying? Now, what were they saying is, this is a coronavirus. There's not much you can do. You're going to have to deal with it. Now, I think that was a bit too cavalier, because you do need to shut down just to allow time for the system to be able to handle the load. Here's the thing. They shut down, and the governments didn't do anything to boost the system. It's like, what the... So everyone, everywhere, just completely fucked up. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And now we're barreling towards 1984 or A Brave New World or whatever you want to do, and it's terrifying.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of an interesting.
Do you have to go at a certain time, or
No, I check my phone. That's what I do.
you're an addict?
Yeah, I have issues. I know. Looking at it, and then there's also some of the same people who are, I don't know, militantly against following government regulations, which sometimes some regulations are good. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Limited regulations.
Well, having, kind of a supposedly disinterested third party that goes, hey, no, your building actually needs to be, up to code. The idea that you can just disregard government regulations and then scream about the medical system being overloaded, and it's like, well, okay, you spent, I don't know, the last 10 years saying, oh, we should defund Medicare in Canada, which is, I'm not going to claim the Canadian system is wonderful. I am going to say it does a pretty good job of handling a lot of emergency cases. It means
the
that
Big Five, broken
idea.
bones. It's great at that.
Yeah,
stuff.
it's good at that. It's not great at like specialized care and getting you your tests rapidly, because frankly, the way it's done needs to be overhauled. It needs, like a lot more funding, because we don't pay doctors particularly well.
It's two things. It's the funding. They need more funding. And the doctors need to change their fucking attitudes. They're kind of corrupt here.
Well, I get what you mean. I also have a couple of friends who've just finished medical school and are starting their careers. Yeah. And you're right. Doctors do make a fair amount of money. They're also in the way.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Well,
though.
yeah, fair enough. There's also some other issues. I'm assuming that my friends are good doctors. They seem nice. I'm a little biased. Yeah. Fair enough. But they do have a point. They're paid out by the number of visits they have, the number of patients they see, which is insane, simply because you think about that. Okay, so you're incentivizing someone to see as many people an hour, not solve their problems, not find out what's actually wrong, just see as many people as they can, which is freaking stupid. Yeah. Because you're saying, okay, don't solve anything. Give this person an opiate. Give them, like, I don't know, make them fight to get a basic referral to physio if they have a joint problem, which is stupid. Yeah, because physios are fantastic. Like all of the
depends on what they're doing, but yeah,
true. But the kind of the peripheral medical system, like your massage therapist, your physio, your kinesiologists, chiropractors to a degree. Some of them are insane. Some of them are good.
They don't do scans. They're crazy.
Yeah, but the peripheral medical system and the preventative medical system is something that it can lower medical costs overall, because preventing issues is a lot cheaper. Yeah. And B, it should be easier to get referred to specialists, because your GP is overworked. They don't really know what they're doing for everything, because they can't. The spectrum of medical issues is so large and so diverse and in depth. No general practitioner is ever going to be able to say, I know exactly what's wrong. I can diagnose this myself.
We don't have Dr. House everywhere?
No, because it's a lovely idea, and it would be great if you did, although he is an asshole.
I'd rather have him, though.
Well, fair. If you could have him everywhere, that would be better for everyone. But diagnosis is a complicated and long process. Yeah. Which no standard your GP will be able to do by themselves, generally, unless they specialize in something. It's like, oh, you happen to walk in with, oh yes, I did a locum on that, or I did a residency, and I saw this exact problem. I can help you. Yeah. If they do, great. But if it's something different that requires tests, you need to actually give them the time to figure out an idea of what's wrong, and then also support the process of going to a specialist and actually doing the tests and figuring out what's wrong.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like everyone the dream of medicine is the Star Trek tricorder.
Oh yeah,
right. We can just scan and figure it out. And unless we can solve the ego of the system and change it, I really think the frontline doctors are going to start ending up being more machine, because it's like scan, go.
Yeah.
Because then it's like scan, go to this place, scan, go to that place. And the other thing is, if a doctor's overworked, they're going to make mistakes. Like, nobody wants to talk about medical mistakes.
Yeah.
Because it's happened. A couple 100,000 people a year in North America alone die because the doctor's overworked, they're tired, or whatever. Imagine what would happen if we published those numbers daily, just like we did COVID number. I think we would get change pretty rapid.
Well, yeah.
But they don't admit that. But, why I bring the tricorder up and sort of going back to science is, I think a lot of the scientific world and a lot of the medical world and a lot of nerds, per se, very much want the Star Trek world to happen. And you see this throughout a lot of creations, like a lot of inventions.
I mean,
like,
cell phones.
Yeah, I wanted to make that happen. And I always think it's funny because it's like the South Park episode, early one with the underpants gnomes, where they're like, first step, underpants, second step, third step, profit. And I'm like, I find with some of the policies, it's they really desperately want the Gene Roddenberry idealistic world to happen, but they don't know how they're going to get there, and they're just experimenting on the general public.
Well, something that seems to get overlooked in that is that the Gene Roddenberry, utopia happened after, in canon, their Third World War.
Yeah.
It happened after a major nuclear exchange kind of wiped out a lot of the population.
Yeah.
Which, turns out you can run a utopia when you have, a 100th of the people left, and guess what? Nobody really wants to start chucking nukes again.
Yeah. Well, we barely even were chucking nukes.
Okay. Well...
We're testing them,
Yeah, we're still talking in canon Star Trek here.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yes, that's true. Yeah, and that's just the thing. They say there's too many people. What do you do with that problem?
Well, the thing is, there aren't really too many people. There's a lot of misallocation and wastage of resources, which leads to people saying that. It's like, well, not really. You just kind of need to stop wasting half the food because it looks funny.
Yeah.
Or, producing things that everyone doesn't need and then basing your economy on that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not...
See, capitalism is not the problem. Consumerism is. And people seem to have a hard time, breaking those two things apart.
Yeah. And it's actually one of the reasons, I have a problem with what's happening these days with greenwashing everything.
Oh, yeah. But it's a green box. It must be good for the environment.
Yeah. Well, people... Also, the idea that somehow it's the individual citizen that's responsible for climate change.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's more or less, the 100 corporations story. That's fairly accurate. Like, these are the people who extract resources, spend a lot of their money marketing products to us that we don't really need, and then turn around and say we're bad for buying the product or buying the product and its packaging and, not knowing how to deal with single-use plastic, which nobody knows how to deal with it. It's terrible.
Ooh, they might have, with the mushrooms, they might have found some fungi that can do that. That's pretty cool. But it's like electric cars, gas cars. Now, one of the reasons we should probably move towards electric cars is because actually it's not great for our health being in a smoggy.
Bingo.
That's actually the real reason. Because if you're in a Hong Kong with the cars, it's like a disaster. A lot of the reasons people are sick in these places is the air quality. But getting rid of cars is a tiny fraction, gas cars I should say, of what's causing overall global warming. Can we talk about the shipping and the airlines?
Oh, yeah.
And why we're not changing those first? Because those are a bigger...
Yeah, well, let's talk about steel production. Let's talk about cement production. Let's talk about just the cost of shipping our food across the world. Let's, and even then, even talking about, passenger airlines. Well, okay, not that bad. Let's talk about cargo airlines.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the fact that Amazon, by itself, is becoming, a major... Well, now... contributor, and then saying, "Oh yes, we'll put your package in all paper package," Like, fuck off! I didn't need this. You sold it to me. The
giant box with nothing in it.
Yeah, oh good. You sent me a cell phone in a meter cube box. Why did you do that?
Yeah, it's probably some guy who's like, "Oh, this is the box. Go." But that's what you're talking about. Is this? They are gaslighting the public and blaming the public, and the governments are doing that too. Everyone at the top with power is gaslighting the public constantly about basically everything because they don't want to take responsibility.
No, they don't want to be the ones to step forward and say, hey, no, Like, we're not going to let this happen anymore.
Yeah. It was like, the whole, I thought it was hilarious, the Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk space race thing,
fuck.
and how Jeff Bezos is being a baby about how he didn't get the NASA contracts. It's like, hey, you do realize that Elon's design is better because it's a fucking reusable rocket and yours is not.
Yeah.
Like, let's just start with that.
Yeah, and, like, I'm not the biggest fan of Elon Musk.
Why not?
He's a dick, and he manipulates stock markets using social media, and it's kind of a stupid...
Hilarious.
Well, sure, it's hilarious, but it's also a stupid fucking thing to do.
Yeah.
And, yeah, just
See,
don't.
I actually don't have a problem with that because I think he's trying to make a point.
Well, stock markets are manipulated by everyone all the time.
And you're seeing that. Have you been following the AMC thing?
Oh, fuck. I own a few GME GameStop shares just because it's fucking funny.
I have 5 AMC just for the hell of it. Like, I don't care. Like, I can ride it. It's, like, not a big deal. Just for fun. If it goes up to whatever they're saying, I'm like, sweet. What the fuck is a dark pool? And I'm like, wait, what?
You're allowed to do that? Pardon me?
Like, what? So for anyone who doesn't know, it's these meme stocks where basically you have short sellers, which I know there's an argument for short selling. I don't agree with short selling because either you value a stock or you don't. That's the way I think it should be. I value this company or I don't. End of story. Yeah. And if it's overinflated, well, then it's overinflated. So basically the short sellers are betting on stocks that they think are overvalued and they want it to crash and burn. And then Wall Street Bets was a subreddit for it that was like, this is ridiculous. We're going to take, what is the most shorted stock? And it was GME, formerly Electronic Boutique and all this. Now it's like a video game store. And they started buying so much that their algorithmic system, which is all computers, they're all using computers to invest. So us retail investors can't keep up. And it just screwed their algorithm and it basically jacked the price from like, I don't know, $5 to $300-$400.
Yeah, it was at $2.
And it bankrupted a couple short sellers and big firms. And now they tried to do it again with another one with AMC, which is a movie company, which actually the retail sellers have probably saved AMC as a company.
Probably.
And you're seeing how desperate these douchebags in Wall Street are to not let it happen to this stock because then more of them will go bankrupt. Yeah. And they're doing stuff that it's like, how is this even legal? Why are they allowed? Like, they're investing, the stock market closes and investing is still going on in these not public trading forms.
Well, yeah, which are supposed to be used for like, oh, you had orders that weren't finished at the end of the day. All right, deal with it, process it, get it done. Because it happens. Like, you have billions of orders per day, or probably more, actually. And you don't get through them all. Even with a computerized system, it can only go so fast, so you want to settle them out and get them done. That's why you have pre- and post-market trading, as far as I know. That's what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be basically market makers after the time going like, okay, how can we shuffle this around so we don't...
trade back and forth with each other to make so it doesn't do what everyone wants it to.
Well, because they fucked up, and now it's just an emperor has no clothes situation where like, you're naked, and... what are you going to do? And it turns out what they're going to do is just keep kicking this can down the road and hope everyone doesn't pay attention.
But see, that's why I honestly think Elon's playing like fucking 10D chess because he's doing this shit just to show. Like, he could just be fucking around because it's funny for him. But I honestly think a lot of what he's doing is to call bullshit on all these dickheads and just prove a point. Because, like, a lot of the things he's single-handedly doing things like electric cars would not be moving where they are without him because the auto industry, so I know about this a little because my uncle was like hardcore electric car guy, always been. He had electric cars before they were cool, and wealthy guy, also I think mechanical engineer, loves this shit, and he was following the story, and you just saw when electric cars, when Elon was trying to start GM, Chrysler, the big automakers were paying off their politicians to shut this down, and they were coming up all sorts of bullshit, just like China was with their stupid, the cars are catching on fire. No, they're not.
No.
Like, what the fuck are you saying or doing? And they were coming up with all this bullshit, even though mathematically the electric cars were safer, to shut this thing down. And I think Elon has, after that whole experience, has taken a personal vendetta against the system to break it. and show them that he can do it. Fuck you. You're not doing anything. You're just all a bunch of greedy assholes who want to stick the way you are, like all these elite wealthy people that just don't want to change. And I think a lot of what he's doing is that. So when he's manipulating the market, it's recently, I think it's to fuck with China more than anything. Whether this is him fucking around or he just sees things in a different way, I think from what I've heard about it, people who know him, like I've listened to lots of interviews of very connected people, very intelligent, like Peter Thiel, his former business partner, they're like, he's the smartest guy in the room. Doesn't matter who's in the room. He's the smart. He's like on the next level. So it is possible it's just easy for him to play these 4D chess games because he is like that. So I look at what he's doing as he might be fixing the problems because he's like pulling the curtain away from Oz, basically.
Yeah, and that's fair. I just, man,
He's still a dick.
He's still a dick, and I get sick of the Papa Elon memes. It's like, oh God, that is fucked up. The guy's still a billionaire. You don't need your adoration.
Well, he has a cult following, obviously.
I know, and I have severe issues with cults.
Yeah. But I mean, between the two, him and Jeff Bezos, I'd rather Elon be in charge.
Oh, sure. I just, generally speaking, I don't think any one person should not be in charge.
Well, of course, yeah. One person in charge. We need the Council of Elders.
Well, mostly we just need a bunch of carefully balanced opposing forces because that's how the general population gets a better deal.
You know how you do that? Decentralized power.
Oh, yeah. I'm all for it, honestly.
That's why the EU is going to fail. That's why all these people trying to centralize power in Washington are going to have it fail. It's going to collapse because it's Hunger Games, basically.
Well, and also, like, related to that, people really need to start taking an interest in their local, like, governance and their municipal stuff, even lower than that, like school board. Yeah. I'm kind of interested in that because my sisters in Victoria have their kids in the Victoria School District, and they have had just a fun time with their budget recently. Yeah. Where they were like, oh well, we're gonna cut like all the music programs.
Right? They constantly do that in schools.
Yeah. Which, okay, what the fuck? And also, and then there was a bit where they came out and they said, well, we're going to cut them because, like the indigenous kids, they don't use those programs. I'm like, okay, motherfucker, you just tried to pit native kids against white kids as your, like, budget argument. And, of course,
these left-wing nut jobs. I have, for lack of a better word, left-wing nut jobs who just want to, like, they're trying to do something, but they're making it worse for everyone. And it's like, you're all nuts.
And then, of course, like the Four Houses, which is the native bands that are present in and around Victoria, came in and said, like, what the fuck? Yeah. Like, no, this is, don't
put this on us.
Well, don't put this on us. And also don't try and claim that somehow your governance has been so good. Yeah. Because it hasn't. This is like the school board of trustees who have not paid attention to what their budget managers are doing. Yeah. And then they're like, oh, well, there's a massive budget shortfall. Well, okay, do these, managers, do these bureaucrats need like $50,000 paid business vacations every year? No, they fucking don't. And when you have like dozens of them, that adds up. And you're trying to say you can't hire more teachers and teachers need to work through their lunch breaks? Yeah. Fuck
when you look at where all the money is going, it's going into bureaucratic administration in almost every system now. Yeah. And that's, the systems become their own thing where they just start trying to support themselves at the expense of what they were created for.
Yeah, the general quote is the bureaucracy is expanding to meet the needs of the expanding bureaucracy. Yeah. Like, oh, good,
and it's obvious to everyone, and no one's doing anything to stop it.
Well, yeah, and the amount of stonewalling that happens that's just like apparently legal. Like, okay, wait, you mean you're not going to go through the budget line by line? You're just going to claim this is valid?
Yeah. It was like, so in Canada, we have our parties. So I was supportive, when the Conservatives were electing a new leader, I was supportive of, what the hell, former defense minister.
I don't remember.
Anyways, if he'd got in, he would have done better than O'Toole. O'Toole, they're just another idiot that they keep putting in the Conservative Party of Canada. Because one thing that is a consistent indicator of whether someone's going to win or not is name recognition. Yeah. And the former defense minister had a pretty decent record for a politician over. It wasn't perfect, but decent. People knew who he was. He was a good-looking guy, pretty in shape.
Yeah.
But I think the reason why the Conservative Party rejected him, he actually got third most votes, was because he was defending the bureaucracy. And the majority of conservative voters in Canada actually are not the right-wing religious people everyone thinks. They're mostly libertarians now. And you know this by the fact that when Maxime Bernier ran 2 cycles prior, he actually got 45% of the vote in the first round.
Yeah.
And it was the political machine that got him to lose. They played around with the votes. So that tells you that actually the majority of conservative voters in Canada are not the old school right-wing religious nuts. The media focuses on those people to create the narrative, but it's actually most people like me, which is like, I want small government, and I want people to back off, and I want you to decentralize shit. And so when the former defense minister was defending the bureaucracy and the bureaucrats and the bloated government, I think that's why he didn't win. Hilariously, in the last round, I forgot Leslie Lewis, who the reason why I didn't vote for her is because I didn't know who the hell she was.
Yeah.
But she got the single most largest voting block in the Conservative Party. She's a black woman. So you can't say conservatives are racist. She didn't get in. Why? The bureaucracy shut her down. They played the numbers in a way that she got. It's like, wait, what? Man, I should have voted for her because she's actually pushing libertarian values. And the system, even in the Conservative Party, does not want to do that. These people, these outsiders keep coming in who want to represent their actual constituents, and the system shuts them down.
Yeah. And it's like, well, I mean, also in Canada we have, well, most Western countries these days, you don't actually have representatives that represent their constituents. You have representatives...
No, that's how it's supposed to work.
You have representatives that kind of present the party line to their constituents, and then people go, okay, I can agree with most of this, fine. But then they go to Ottawa, and they will vote according to what the party whip says.
Yeah.
It does not matter what their constituents
that needs
say.
to stop.
Well, it's entirely contrary to how a representative democracy is supposed to work. You are supposed to represent your constituents. You are not supposed to just be part of a bloc constantly.
That's all they do.
Well, yeah, and I get that political parties work.
That's me,
Are
not you.
Yeah, fair enough. Are the way that they are for a reason. Like, you don't get anything done unless you have a majority, and it's easier to just have this voting bloc that votes with you.
Yeah.
But it's also a really stupid way to do things when you towing the party line means you're not actually representing the people who voted for you.
Yeah.
You're just kind of perpetuating whatever the party wants or claims to want.
Well, yeah, that's just it. We're supposed to vote for who represents me best, and they represent my voice in Parliament.
Yeah.
Who does everyone actually vote for? They vote for the party leaders. I think they shouldn't announce the party leaders until you do the constituency elections. You figure out who's got the most seats, and then there's some way to figure out, okay, now we're going to put up our party leaders.
Yeah.
And so now we can see publicly who actually, or we could do this. And I don't know how this is. You vote for your constituent, then the parties pick their leaders, and then we pick who do we want actually to be prime minister out of the leaders. And so now you could have a conservative majority but a liberal leader. Now there's some sort of power balance or something.
Well, yeah, and also another thing that Canada has kind of failed to do is check the power creep of the Prime Minister's office.
Oh, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Well, the idea that
He's literally breaking all the rules and then changing the laws so he can do whatever the hell he wants now.
Yeah, and it's not just him. It's the fact that there's permanently positioned bureaucrats, like the permanent undersecretary to the office, that doesn't change.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's still there. Or, well, that may not be the exact title. But there are a bunch of unelected people who are, continuity of government is great, but not when it just means that people continue to consolidate power and you essentially have one party, two colors.
Yeah. Well, we have like 5 colors in Canada.
Yeah, okay, sure.
But they're all doing the same thing, and anyone who's kind of an outsider gets slammed by the media, which is basically not as bad as the States, but it's still pretty...
Well, I mean, like, you had Wilson Raybould,
Yeah.
who was...
We should be voting for her. She's
Yeah.
stepping away now. She's not
I
rerunning.
completely understand
Yeah.
why she's stepping away, because she did what was right
Yeah.
and got basically torn apart.
So maybe explain that so people who don't know.
So originally she was elected as a Liberal MP. So she was part of the Liberal Party, great old Justin Trudeau.
Yeah.
And then...
He's being sarcastic. Nobody in Canada likes him, but he's probably still going to get in.
What do you mean? He has great hair. Anyway, so she got elected as an MP. She got placed in his diverse cabinet, which in this case was a very good choice. She was a very competent politician. Still
and she's
is.
native, so...
Yeah, really, actually, nice lady, too.
Yeah.
So she got placed in his cabinet as, what was it, the Justice?
Yeah, Justice Minister.
Justice Minister.
Yeah.
A person who's supposed to oversee the courts, more or less. And then there was the SNC-Lavalin affair, which was
one of many scandals.
Yeah, basically, a big old company in Canada, SNC-Lavalin, based in Quebec.
Trudeau's
which is
friends with them.
Yeah, Trudeau's friends with him. They donate to him a lot.
Yeah.
Got embroiled in basically massive corruption scandals, and they were bribing officials in other countries to get contracts, and they claimed that they fired the people responsible, but they really didn't pay much in terms of penalty.
Yeah.
And there was that connection to the Liberal Party and Justin Trudeau, which Wilson Raybould was like, okay, well, this is a thing. This happened. This is kind of this is going on. And then she basically got told to shut up by the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau.
Allegedly, he was screaming at people. Allegedly.
Yeah. And basically, after that, got removed from her position as, Justice Minister, replaced by some whatever other person, and then left the party.
Yeah. Now she's an independent. Actually, the other person who followed her didn't get reelected, but she had such name power. She got reelected as an independent, which happens in Canada. Unlike the States where it's impossible to
you don't get elected as an independent in the States.
But she basically has now said she's not going to run in the next election because... And you're seeing this. A lot of very competent people are choosing not to rerun because they are so jaded by the corruption and bullshit in the system. And it's leaving more and more stupid idiots who just like attention to be in charge of shit.
Or smart idiots.
Or smart idiots. What's a smart idiot?
In this case, it's someone who is smart enough to get themselves in power and play the various games and sides that they need to stay there, but basically either doesn't know or doesn't care about the negative consequences of doing that when you're in power. Because the continuous erosion of public trust in governance is a pretty huge problem.
Yeah.
Because if you're saying, well, every elected official is just this corrupt mess, why would anyone follow any laws? Because they're put in place by people that are visibly corrupt.
Well, I think you're starting to see that now as people are getting tired. You're seeing because of the whole COVID policies, which a lot of them don't make any sense based on evidence. And you're seeing the BBC studio got stormed in London the other day by anti-lockdown protesters.
Wasn't that the former BBC studio?
I don't know the details. I'm not specific, but they stormed something. I mean, of course, did the BBC talk about it at all? No. It was foreign people who are like RT, which is Russian news, which I find hilarious. If you go on Facebook, and I follow RT just because I want different perspectives. It says Russian state control media under RT on Facebook. And then you go to CBC, and I'm like, why doesn't it say Canadian state control media? Because it is.
Yeah.
Like, it actually is. Now, you might not put CNN because technically it's not, but it is. It should say Democrat control media.
Well, are we going to extend that to Fox News here?
Yeah, I mean, it goes both ways. But, technically CBC should be listed as state control media. But it's not. So it's like, why are you only saying that to foreign countries that you don't like? So BBC is state control media.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, they should say this is state-funded, state-controlled media.
Well, it's like, politicians should probably wear sponsors jackets.
Yeah, right. Who's paying you? People have out there, I know in the States, people have suggested you have to list all your sponsors publicly. Otherwise,
and your investments.
Yeah, wasn't there a comedian who said you should wear NASCAR style? George Carlin, right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's George Carlin, but that's kind of where I'm pulling from. Is that's a joke, but I like that idea.
Let's see who's paying you money. Well, in America, the corporations is people thing is like, no, I don't understand that.
Well, if they're people, then you should be able to actually, prosecute them as people.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, let's change topics. You moved to Switzerland, I don't know, before COVID.
Well, kind of mid-COVID, actually.
Well, why did you do that? Canada's so awesome.
Well, Canada is kind of awesome. My wife, she got a PhD position at CERN, one of the first ones.
Here's the first thing. I didn't realize you got married. I must have missed that.
Well, it's kind of necessary to move to Switzerland, actually. It's like we were jumping through hoops, and it's like, okay, well, how
COVID marriage brothers,
Yay. How can I come along? And it was really funny because, like, CERN is obviously helping with this. And they're like, well, there's this civil union you can get in Quebec. And it's like, because Quebec is basically the only province that has it. A little bit of a historical thing there. So they're like, okay, so if you get this like piece of paper that says you're civilly unified, then Switzerland will accept you as like a spouse, and you'll get a better visa. You'll be able to get through. Yeah. So it's like, well, I do kind of love this woman, so
why not?
All right, let's do it. It was a bit sooner than we had planned, but
it's like same for me. Like on the marriage thing, like we were not expecting it, and then COVID hit, and we were stuck together with each other, and then we're like, shit, I don't think I can do this life thing with anyone else anymore. Like, okay.
Kind of similar thing. And so, all right, I don't want to do long distance, so let's jump through this hoop and go there. So we ended up flying to Montreal, also kind of mid-COVID, bit risk.
You're
we'll
healthy.
See. Yeah, fair enough. Got one of my friends who lived there to be my like witness. She flew her sister in as well, and we're all set, technically married according to Swiss law. Anyway, so we moved there because she got a PhD position. First time that type of position was offered outside of the European Union. Fantastic. She's really smart. Got the position. Moved to Switzerland so she could work at CERN.
CERN being a giant particle accelerator. Back to that.
Centre Européen de la Recherche Nucléaire. Because French is fun. So she moved for that. She's doing really interesting work. She's not doing, technically not particle physics. It's molecular physics. So she's...
what in the hell is the difference?
Well, okay, depends who you ask. To layperson, pretty much nothing. They're doing science stuff. To people involved, there's a huge spectrum of difference here. So, for example, she's doing molecular research dealing with the actinide group. So on the periodic table, they're one of the lines that is like chunked out and kind of off to the side.
Doesn't fit in. It's going over there.
And that's kind of why she's doing the research, is because there's a lot of stuff that is unknown about these materials, these elements. And there's a lot of potential applications for them, like anything from medical to materials science to whatever else you can think of. There's probably an application. So a lot of her work is figuring out ways to reliably produce usable quantities of these kind of exotic materials, which is, it differs from particle physics in that particle physics is dealing with trying to figure out the properties of very elementary particles, usually. So we're talking smaller than electrons and protons here. We're going down to quarks and etc. at the cutting edge. So she's dealing...
For the layman, the quantum realm, like Ant-Man.
Sure, let's go with that. And at this point we start getting into stuff that I don't understand particularly well, so I kind of have to step back and be like, okay, yep, she's doing stuff with molecular actinide beams, and that's great, and I will let her talk about it now, because she, like... actually knows what she's doing. And she's really enjoying it, and it's great. And then so I was looking for work in Switzerland for a while, which interesting experience. Definitely they're very formal, as anything you've probably heard about Switzerland is like, you do it by the book, you follow the regs.
It's funny because I've only ever met Swiss who are not in Switzerland because they can't deal with it.
Oh yeah, because it is like, it's stressful, and they are not particularly helpful a lot of the time with
you don't know it's your fault.
How dare you? More Russian there, but anyway. So I was looking for work for a while, and then I finally found a position at the solar panel development company.
Oh, that's cool. That's why in your field, or not field of your interest, I should say, in the whole environmentally friendly
Well,
thing.
I figured, like, I don't really want to be working in what a lot of engineers end up working in, especially mechanical, which is like developing vehicles and stuff. Like, I don't give a shit about making the new version of a car or a luxury like truck or something. Yeah. It's pretty understood science, but if I can help like design and develop better solar panels, that's actually kind of useful.
You know, I was actually having this discussion with my wife about actually in an apocalypse, if you have your own property, a solar electric vehicle is better, because if you have solar panels and a wind turbine or whatever on your property, you never run out of fuel. You just need to know how far you can go. So really what you want is a hybrid vehicle that's mostly electric with a little gas tank just in case.
Yeah, maybe a little biodiesel.
Yeah, for the apocalypse. And that's the direction. So if you're like a prepper and you're like, gas, it's like, actually, no. Like, if you have a huge property.
Gas denatures as well. Like, you have to constantly be replacing it, which is expensive and kind of silly.
That's why, like, let's say you want to get the quote, right-wing nuts to go green. Make the right arguments.
Well, the U.S. military is trying to go green. Like, they have been for a long time, because they want their bases and their vehicles to be self-sufficient.
Away from the Saudi oil and all that stuff.
Just away from a very vulnerable power source. Because oil, and storing it, oh, great, that's a great big target. Like, there's your oil tank. Blow that up. Suddenly your forces can't move. They can't evacuate, and they're screwed.
Well, you know, it's funny. I was listening to, like, everyone's like, oh, you can't use nuclear power to power. It's like, actually, the U.S. Navy... There's aircraft carriers and submarines. They're nuclear powered, no problem.
Yeah, and technically, you can, if you have enough power, you can make things like jet fuel from seawater.
Yeah.
The U.S. Navy actually developed a technique for that. Got to be like 30 years ago now. It's interesting. They run it through some catalytic stuff, and it's really cool. Kind of inefficient and power hungry, but another one of those let's move away from oil ideas.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is... You know, probably. Well, I don't know. You haven't listened to anything. I'm big in nuclear, because in the absence of anything better, I'm like, okay. If you look at why nuclear reactors have failed, it's usually humans dicking around and not following what they're supposed to be following.
Yeah, and it's also something that people, especially the hardcore environmentalists, kind of have a blind spot about, because they're like, okay, we need to move to electric vehicles. We need to do, like, electrify everything. We need to move away from coal and natural gas and oil. And you're right. But if you move, at the same time as you're moving away from those, you move to electric vehicles, you have a huge additional power demand that either you need to invest way more in solar than you are, and way more in wind and hydro, or you can have nuclear.
Yeah.
And nuclear is a pretty good option. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't come with dangers. I worked at a facility where I had to constantly be aware of radiation and monitor my, like, exposure and all this stuff. Also, nuclear research, not very dangerous. Less dangerous than taking a plane.
Yeah. You mean I'm not going to turn into the Hulk? That's gamma, I know. Yeah.
Well, no, gamma is a type of radiation. You're absolutely correct. But it's also... It's kind of fun learning about it, because you find out, like, there's the way you stop gamma is just you bring it down to a reasonable percentage of gamma exposure, because you can't. It's very difficult to stop 100% of it.
Yeah. There's a certain level of particle physics. It's like, hey, these things are flying through us at all times, and there's nothing you can do.
Well, yeah, it's like neutrino.
Yeah.
You had 1 billion of them pass through your, like, pinky finger.
Yeah.
Well, we've been sitting here.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything about it. You can't shield from these things, which are almost, well, it's hard to tell if they're massless or not, because it's very hard to observe them.
Yeah.
There's actually a really cool experiment in Antarctica, which I think it's called, like, the ice cube one, where what they do is they drill really deep holes into the ice, and then they put cameras, like very sensitive cameras, down on a string in, like, a row in a cube. And they're, I believe, omnidirectional cameras, so they see everything around them. And it's nice and dark, perfectly, very clear ice. So what happens is when you have those 1 in a billion neutrino interactions somewhere around those cameras, they're able to track the trajectory from the light that's given off from that collision.
Oh, nice.
It's really cool, because, why are you going to Antarctica? Well, I'm going to go install several thousand cameras, like, a kilometer deep in the ice.
But how does this help my constituents?
Yeah, and that's kind of a fun question as well, because it's like, well, directly it doesn't.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, if there's one thing that makes humans actually different, it's that we don't always do things that just directly help us.
Yeah.
Because you're right, knowing about the mass of a neutrino will not help me solve world hunger.
Yeah.
But that's not the point. The point is we are at a stage in our civilization where we absolutely can start poking at how the universe works. And that is something which actually makes us different, which we should do.
And you never know, like, so that's the COVID, again, highlights the scientific elite douche heads. Like, I know there's two people I'm thinking in particular in the local martial arts community. I don't like you guys, sorry, because their stance is, do what the scientists say, do what the science says, you have to do this. And I think one of them is a hypochondriac, and one of them, I don't know what the fuck their problem is. It's this idea that science is so rigid, and it's like you realize that, first of all, if there's dissenting arguments, no, the science is not settled.
No.
And second of all, it's not that that side's wrong and this, maybe you're both wrong, you don't know. And some of the greatest discoveries in history in science were complete accidents because the scientists themselves was asking the wrong question, like penicillin, right? It was just like dirty
moldy sandwich.
Yeah, and they're like, oh yeah, something like that. And they're like, oh, something happened. It was a total accident. And then we always forget that a lot of it is just trial and error, screw around, experiment. And I think a lot of the scientific elitists tend to be so rigid about how science must be done. And so in order to discover something that we don't even know will help us, you need to kind of just do a whole bunch of stuff randomly, and something may end up. And I think it's a universal approach, because if you look at how angel investors invest, they're like, listen, if I put $1 million on 10 different things, one of them is going to give me $100 million. The rest of them is going to not give me my $9 million back, because it's a trial and error.
Yeah.
Not everything is going to succeed. Some things will, some things won't. We only need 10% of stuff to move forward in order for us to get progress. Yeah. And I think people, they just don't get that.
No, and yeah, like science isn't a belief system. As like
a religion.
We talked about that before, but like if you believe in science, you don't believe in a specific discovery. You believe in the idea that you observe the world and you make a hypothesis, and then you test that. And if your hypothesis is wrong, that is just as good a result.
Yeah.
Like you found something out. Maybe it wasn't like what you wanted to find out, but it's still good information.
But now you can't get funding.
Well, it depends where you go for funding.
Yeah, right. I think that's the future of science development, is we need more positively motivated, wealthy people funding stuff privately.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't really like a lot of very wealthy people, because that's actually one main reason why.
Yeah. Because
they aren't doing shit with their money. Like, okay, you have billions and billions of dollars.
What are you doing?
What are you doing? Like, at least Elon Musk is like doing interesting things. Like Jeff Bezos, give me a fucking break.
Yeah, a lot less so.
Or whatever other billionaire you care to name. Yeah. Like, do things. Build hospitals. Build massive power
I'd be like,
plants.
hey, I have $1 billion. Hey, I'm going to buy MRIs for Canadian hospitals, because for some reason their own government won't fucking buy those, which will solve a lot of our fucking problems. Like, Jesus
and
Christ.
I mean, in Canada here, we have this problem with like, oh, there's no clean water on reserves.
Still don't understand that one.
Well, it's a bunch of political bullshit, poor training, poor education, all this stuff. And also the government going, well, we don't want to step in and tell them what to do. It's like, okay,
that's bullshit.
Well, it's also an excuse. It's like, okay, if you've given them the opportunity to govern themselves and deal with this problem, you've provided funding, it's either been taken by graft and corruption, or it's been misused, or something has gone wrong. You know they need clean water. Stop fucking around using the excuse. Take the hit to your truth and reconciliation doctrine, and say, "Look,"
which is a lot of it's a lot of misguided bullshit.
But here's your water treatment plant. Yeah. Here's how you make it work. Yeah. Here's your clean water, and it's way cheaper than paying for all the health problems that come out of not having clean water.
Yeah, that was it still is my biggest piss off about COVID. This was the opportunity for governments around the world, in the Western world, because they'll always be like, in the third world country, it's like, shut the fuck up. We have this problem here. It's the health and well-being of your citizens. It's particularly in America. You're obese. We need to solve this problem. Now is the chance to tell people to get healthy. And guess what? They're finally releasing all the studies that are saying, hey, you know, if you exercise regularly and eat well, you have a less chance of dying factually according to actual trial and error science. Still don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, of course not.
Right. And I would just like this. Why aren't we talking about this? Or vitamin D is a thing, or all this other stuff. They refuse to talk about it, and they say it's pseudoscience. And it's because no one wants to tell the 300-pound obese person, you need to fucking lose weight, especially if you're a socialist, you motherfucker, because you're costing everyone else money, and you're killing yourself.
Yeah. And, I mean...
Why I could never be a politician.
Well, fair enough. Who knows? Maybe you'd be a fairly good politician for that reason.
Decision-making, one thing, but... you have to get elected in the first place.
Yeah, your optics might not be the best. No, and it's also part of that, going back to kind of the medical system, there needs to be less of the, alongside saying, hey, you're obese, you need to eat, you need to change that, also needs to come with, you need to stop saying that being overweight is the only cause of medical issues.
Yeah.
That, like, the two go together.
Yeah.
Because if people are just, you know, a little bit overweight, but they have a legitimate medical issue that isn't caused by that,
yeah,
and they're being dismissed because, oh, you're carrying 20 pounds extra, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, that generates this idea of like, well, I'm being discriminated against because of weight, because you kind of are.
Yeah.
But people who are, you know, 350 pounds, 300 pounds, and yeah, okay, that causes so many problems by itself that you can't even begin to diagnose without addressing that.
Well, it's like I was saying in one of the other parts, it's about being optimal, right? Some people, due to specific medical reasons, may never be able to be ripped.
Yeah. But
you should be what's optimal for you. Now, I think we should be able to solve the problem. Why can't you get ripped? Is it something we can solve? I think it is the problem. So, like, Western medicine's problem is they're obsessed with the pharmaceuticals.
Oh, yeah.
And they're treating the symptoms, not the cause. Eastern medicine's problem is, while they do have a preventative approach, it's a lot of it's a lot of bullshit.
Well, when you start doing things like, oh, tiger claw.
Yeah.
Not to...
Penis dick. Like,
well.
Go.
Is that from the penis bush?
I don't know. No, literal like penis, tiger penis.
Yeah, I know.
Or I said something, I can't remember. Anyways, and it's just like, someone actually told me the other day, it's a lot of Eastern medicine is because even if that medicine man or whatever actually has a solution to the problem, like a herb, he knows it's going to work, he's out of that herb. So he'll just give you something else instead. He'll be like, take this.
Yeah. Because
he wants the money. And I'd never thought of it like that. But, like, for example, if I feel like my immune system is a little compromised, well, Joe, being Asian, was like, oh, my grandma used to have us have honey, lemon, ginger water. So you put in honey and lemon and ginger and then in with hot water. And I shit you not, it's like magic. Mm-hmm. And then I'm drinking this. I'm like, holy shit, this tastes like Halls. And they tried to, commercialize something that you don't need to commercialize. You just tell people, hey, I'm not talking, it's not going to work for like a serious thing.
Yeah, it's not going to solve pneumonia.
Hey, if my glands here and my neck are a little swollen and I feel like I'm about to have a fever, I take that shit measurably with the measure, my temperature's down. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, holy fuck, right? And so that's something, as a Westerner, I'm like, I never thought that. And then I realized, okay, where does aspirin come from? Willow bark. Well, someone was chewing it at some point. And now aspirin's probably okay as far as they concentrated it. Mm-hmm. But do you really need to be taking that every day?
Well, no, and you shouldn't, because acetylsalicylic acid isn't great as a constant supplement.
Yeah. Well, most of that stuff shouldn't be constant.
Well, it's like anyone who's taking ibuprofen on a daily basis. Oh, that's not great for you. Yeah. And I mean, this is a pretty personal thing for me because I do have chronic pain issues. And a lot of the time, like when I was trying to get this diagnosed, this is part of why I have rants about doctors. It's because it took like 5 or 6 different doctors before I could get one who'd listen to me and wouldn't just try and prescribe me stronger drugs.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want drugs. I'm not coming here for T3s or whatever else.
Yeah.
I want you to actually do the tests, figure out what's fucking me up, and then I can figure out how to move forward. And it turns out, hey, guess what? You've got fibromyalgia. Yeah. Probably. And it turns out it's not cancer or any of the other lovely things. Good, or liver disease that it could have been causing it. Yeah. Seems to be a fibromyalgia. And you know what? Hey, you shouldn't be taking painkillers constantly because there's a psychosomatic part of it. Yeah. And your body will just start basically overwriting the painkiller. It'll say like, oh, you need to take bigger and bigger doses. Because I know you're doing this, bitch. Yeah. And I'm going to make you in pain no matter what. Yeah. My body's kind of an asshole. Yeah.
A lot of people's bodies, right?
Well, and you just gotta like.
Same for my wife. Like, she had chronic pain, and it's just it seems to be through we figured out, not the doctors, that there's a history of autoimmune issues, and so she has to be careful what she eats. If she eats properly and doesn't eat the wrong things, she doesn't have these problems anymore. Yeah, and it's just as simple as that for a lot of people.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, one of the reasons why I get so much exercise is because that helps deal with the psychosomatic side of things. Yeah. Like, instead of my body deciding that it's going to have, like, stabbing pains somewhere because, I don't know, it's bored. Yeah.
Then I torture you because.
Yeah. So I'll go and I'll, like, work out. I'll go on a long bike ride, or I'll lift weights, or I'll fight people. Yeah. And it kind of...
Fight me, motherfucker.
Well, it trains your nerves a bit to be like, oh, that's what that actually feels like. Oh, that's actual pain. That's actual real sensation.
You know, it's actually funny. I was listening to something about do you know who Andrew Huberman is?
Heard of him?
Yeah, you should listen to him. But he was talking about this. He's like, he wants people to stop saying psychosomatic because he's like, well, technically your neurons are doing something, which is telling you something. He's an example of a professor who's stepping a little bit outside the system because they're kind of tired of it. At the beginning of all his podcasts, he's like, this is separate from my work at Stanford, and blah, 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 blah. It's got nothing to do with it. But he's just telling people what the up-to-date research is in a somewhat normal people language way, you know, and he was talking about that a little bit. I forgot specifically what he was talking about, but I think phantom limbs and stuff like that, and how it tells someone, like a hypochondriac, it's psychosomatic in the sense that a lot of it is in their head. But if it's in your head and you create the problem, you can actually get sick.
Well, yeah, so and that's a funny thing about your nervous system is it's actually a physical system. So I'm not going to deny that my neurons are sending a signal that something is stabbing my finger. Yeah. But if I can look at my finger and say, yeah, that's bullshit. Yeah. Then it helps also for me mentally to be like, okay, that pathway is a little fucky. Yeah. And it's an interesting thing that also is helped by meditation, because there are some meditative techniques where you build the image of your body and then you go in and sort of see, okay, how's it feeling? You awareness of self, basically. Like, you go through your body, and it's usually as a calming technique. Like, you build an awareness, like, oh, here's my toe, here's my foot, my leg, etc. Yeah, and kind of breathe through it. Yeah. For me, that's a very practical thing, because I can go through and be like, okay, well, no, there's nothing wrong with my toe. That pain's bullshit. Yeah. And it's a very effective technique. And it's like, anyone who's like, oh, meditation's bullshit. No, because it's not about like this. Well, it doesn't have to be about this spiritual or like whatever woo thing. It's a very practical way of being aware of your body and centering yourself into yourself.
With that being said, like I was meditation for some people is not a starting point because their nervous system is not even remotely calm enough to even be able to do that.
Fair enough.
So that's why whenever we get these trends, it's like you get the hacks trying to sell something, and then they're not being objective. Like, my approach to teaching self-defense pisses a lot of people off because I'm not paying you to lecture at me, John. But for me, it's like, hey, do you know about your health? Do you know about this? Because there's no easy way to say it. More intelligent people who are curious about the universe or curious about stuff are not going to always take the doctor's word at face value. Less intelligent people are like, the doctor told me to do this. So for me, it's really important to teach people, no matter what your cognitive capabilities are, listen, is it actually good for you? Like, are they just giving you a pill? And then it's like, hey, did the problem go away?
Yeah.
If the answer is no, guess what? Why are you listening to that doctor? Well, they're a doctor. Okay. That's the thing the people seem to have forgotten. Trust the experts. That's called appeal to authority. It's a very well-known logic fallacy. Stop doing that. I thought you were smart. For the intellectuals who've been saying this all year long. I think it's just cowardice, quite frankly, on that aspect, is that what I saw this year is people, they start with fighting, resisting, and then they go, well, I want things to go back to normal, so just do what you're being told so that we can go back to normal. And I'm like, okay, but is that solving the problem? So, like, the way I teach self-defense is I want to teach people more than just, hey, how to punch and kick. Because if you're actually physically needing to fight all the time, well, you have a problem that's beyond the technique. So actually you need to know how to defend your mind from bad ideas and defend your body from bad advice from doctors. And to me, like, this podcast is what, for me, podcasting saved me, because the way I think, I don't meet very many people like that. And now all of a sudden I can listen to Andrew Huberman or Lex Friedman or Eric Weinstein or these, like, intellectual people. I'm like, holy shit, I'm not alone. So for me, it's about making sure that people's worldviews are open and expanding, and realizing if things are not always what you've been told or what it seems, and you might be right or wrong about something, but now you can listen to people who are telling you the same thing that you had, and you can find a solution to your problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah, a lot of that, if I'm correct, boils down to, actually think.
Yeah.
Just don't dismiss everything an authority says, but do consider, like, whether they're actually giving you good advice. Yeah. And that's not, like, one of the things that people, I think, have a little bit of trouble with is, especially for more mental disorders like anxiety,
which is going through the fucking roof.
Yeah, well, all kinds of reasons for that. But one of the problems with treating it is that what works for one person really doesn't. Yeah. Like, because a lot of it is brain chemistry, and everyone's is different. So it's going to take a while. And anyone or any, like, practitioner or doctor is like, oh, well, this one pill will absolutely save you. It's like, no, you got to try that one, and you got to try it for a while, because it takes a while for things to get into your system and get out of your system. You can't just say, oh, I've solved your anxiety by giving you this pill. It's not going to be something that's solved. You're going to have that probably for the rest of your life. And even if you manage it through chemical means or physical means or whatever you do, your doctor needs to be with you the whole time, and also constantly monitoring. Because if something else in your life changes, your brain chemistry might change, and suddenly the pill that worked doesn't. Yeah. Or maybe they never find a pill that worked, and through that they figure out, oh, hey, maybe there's something else physically wrong.
Yeah. Well, it's fucked up, but with the increase of... I don't know if this has always been, we just don't know, but now, let's say we're measuring and watching it in real time. It seems like a large percentage of people who have severe anxiety and aren't dealing with it gravitate politically to the left right now in this time frame, and they are demanding control over everything. And that's the thing, is we actually really need to solve this anxiety problem, because I'm sick of someone with anxiety telling me how I have to live, because they're like, they can't handle their anxiety, so they want to control me. Yeah. And I think that's something, the mental health thing, we need to deal with it now. That I think living in cities constantly with too many people is probably driving anxiety. I think being like, all our devices are probably causing anxiety. There's lots of probably easy to tell reasons why, but if we don't learn how to deal with this, we're going to descend into some 1984 shit, because there's going to be an increased amount of people with anxiety that demand we control everything just so they don't feel anxious. And it's like, what the fuck?
And it's like, that level of control isn't actually going to make you feel less anxious, because knowing that you're under that level of surveillance is in and of itself a source of anxiety.
That's terrifying to me.
Yeah, if I know, like, literally that someone is always watching me, or someone's always listening through my phone or whatever else, that is not a secure thing for me. Yeah. I don't know who's listening. I don't know what their motivations are, and I don't really like the idea that my private in-home discussion might turn into someone going, oh, well, this guy's insane.
Yeah.
It's like, I know I'm a little bit crazy, but I'm not gonna fuck with anyone.
And then you get the political thing. You said this, and then we're gonna I don't know if you heard Yeonmi Park talk about North Korea at all. Yeah, she got out of North Korea, and she's like 28, 29 now or something.
Mm-hmm.
She was just on Rogan. Like, it's a really you have to be emotionally prepared to listen to her story because it's very intense. I recommend either her Jordan Peterson interview or the Rogan one. But she's just talking about why does nobody talk about the slavery and dictatorship of North Korea. I think I know the reason why no one wants to deal with North Korea. It's basically you have 50 million people who are intellectually like 7-year-olds who don't understand the rest of the world. And if you take out that dictatorship, which in a moral stance should happen, what do you do with 50 million people that need to play catch up? And the reality is no one wants to deal with it.
No, nobody wants to deal with it.
Yeah.
And who knows what kind of like continuity of government projects that regime has in place.
Yeah.
Do you want to be the guy who goes in and has to deal with all those like individual landmines of people?
Yeah. Well, and she was just talking about the hypocrisy. It's like no one wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
You talking about the black people's slavery. She's like, slavery is bad, but what about my people's slavery?
Yeah.
Why are they special and we're not? Right. And it's just it's crazy.
Well, yeah, and then that's another case where it's like, yeah, you're right. We should be dealing with that as well.
Yeah.
And the idea that you can only deal with one problem at a time is going back to what I was talking about earlier. Like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
There are so many resources and people available to deal with things.
Yeah.
And yes, slavery is bad. If you start with that basic premise, you should be addressing that everywhere.
Yeah.
You shouldn't just be saying, oh, well, this one's very visible, so I'm going to deal with it. You should be going, this one's not visible, so we need to deal with it more.
Yeah.
Or we need to also cover this.
And she brought it up why the woke corporations don't want to talk about it. China.
Well, yeah.
Like Disney and the NBA are two examples of sellouts, that they are more interested in getting money in the China market than actually making good on their so-called woke ideology. They'd rather get money.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, you're not actually about morals or ethics.
No, like if you were about morals or ethics, you would be pulling all of your manufacturing and all your promotions out of China. Yeah. And it's not...
Which would be great, because then they're no longer a problem if no one wants to deal with it.
Well, that's exactly the thing. Like, it is not a racist ideology to say that the Chinese government is a, dictatorship that is absolutely against what most of the world claims they stand for.
Yeah.
And if you're going to constantly do business with them while also saying that people are bad for criticizing like racism or not criticizing racism, or genocides are bad, but you're still doing business with China.
Yeah.
Government control is bad, because some people obviously say that.
Yeah.
But you're still doing business with China.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Or any sort of like ideology where you're trying to say this thing is terrible anywhere it appears, but then but we can't possibly criticize the Chinese government.
I'll give props to Google, even though they're douchebags, for saying fuck it, we're out.
Well, yeah, and I mean I think that had a lot more to do with they can't profit if they can't fuck around with data a bunch. But
their motives were not the best, but the outcome was we're not working with you.
No, it's not really a moral stand; it's an economic stand, and that's, you know what, that's kind of fine, because I also get really sick of, frankly, being called a racist for criticizing the Chinese government.
Yeah.
I don't.
By the way, I can never go to China because of this podcast.
Yeah, fair enough. It's not really somewhere I want to go either.
Yeah.
It's not racist to say that this is a kind of terrible government, and even if they supposedly have the interests of their people at heart, they should still be, frankly, a target of criticism. Any source of power, anyone with a great deal of power, should be criticized, called out, and shone a light on.
Yeah. Unless you're Trudeau, who just wants to keep changing laws so you can no longer criticize him, right?
Well, yeah, and that's if you're still supporting someone who so very clearly doesn't care about the consequences of their actions.
Yeah. I don't
That's
know.
on you.
I swear, if he gets in again, I don't know what to think about this country. I think it's going to go down the path of division if he keeps getting in.
Well, if the policies stay the same, if it's still short-sighted, kind of woke, I want to get the support of the whatever left, but not actually do anything. Like, if you wanted to be a woke politician, where the fuck's the voting reform?
Yeah.
Where is an actual
anything he promised ever?
An actual economic policy that is environmentally friendly, as opposed to just greenwashed horse shit while you buy pipelines.
Yeah.
Like,
which was a disaster.
Why the fuck did you buy that pipeline?
Well, he bought it for $5 billion taxpayer money, thinking he could force the courts. This is what I think he thought. I'm the prime minister. The courts are going to agree with me. I'm building this so I can get the Alberta vote. And the courts said, yeah, no, you can't run pipelines through people's lands where they don't want it. Sorry.
Yeah.
But he's just such a narcissistic shitbag that he genuinely thought, I'm the prime minister. I can do what I want. Because he's trying to make everyone happy. Like, if I can build a pipeline, I'm going to get, or twin the pipeline, I'm going to get the votes in Alberta. Yeah. And I'll get the jobs. So then they'll vote for me. And I can tell the courts what to do. No, you can't, Dick. Now you're starting to see him put pressure on the courts to do what he wants after the fact.
And come on, like, anytime someone starts trying to do that kind of merging of the executive and the judicial branches of government, they should be removed. Like, this isn't. They are not supposed to serve one another. Yeah. Judicial branch needs to be separate. Otherwise, you've just created a bit of a feudal system.
What I'm hoping happens, it's not my ideal scenario, but that a lot of liberals are so pissed off they vote NDP, and the NDP steal a lot of the votes. Quebec goes all bloc, which I think shouldn't be allowed to be a federal party. But anyway, and then the Conservatives get a minority. That's what I'm hoping happens. But I don't fucking know.
Well, the thing is, like, I would be pretty okay with the Conservatives being, well, required to push a bit more towards the environmental side of things.
Which they are now.
Finally.
Again, I don't understand what the issue is. As I said, most people in the Conservative Party are much more neutral than people realize. And it's just the dumb, loud, right-wing nut jobs who live in the middle of nowhere with no goddamn clue. Or my oil job. It's like, dude, industry's dead. I'm sorry. You should actually be blaming the Alberta government for not diversifying.
They fucked that up royally. The amount of... anyway, the amount of money they misappropriated and misused, just like...
Now, with that being said, Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the NDP, is a naive fool. But I think he's a nice, naive fool, and I would much rather have him in charge than the malicious douchebag that we have.
I would prefer a kind of oblivious naivety to malicious, very clearly just self-centered.
But you're in Switzerland now. You don't have to deal with it.
I mean, I'm still a Canadian citizen. I still get to kind of hear about this shit.
So back to that, like, how is living in Switzerland overall? Like,
it's really good, actually. Like, one of the things that I think Switzerland does well is they understand that they need local industry. Yeah. So a lot of the food is grown in Switzerland. It's like sponsored. If farmers aren't profitable, they're usually sponsored by the government so that they keep the food production relatively local. Yeah. Now, obviously, there's stuff that's imported, of course. That's kind of how trade works. Yeah. But yeah, food is generally local. It's usually good quality. Like, grocery stores just tend to have good quality food. It's very clean in general. It's mostly quiet, although I live in downtown core right now, so it's...
Of what city?
Geneva. Lovely city. Most of the population is actually not Swiss. Yeah. Because the UN obviously has headquarters there. Yeah.
That lovely organization.
It's its own special beast. And it's gorgeous. It's lovely. I already knew French, but now I'm learning Italian and German because...
The million languages they speak there.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of fun that way. Yeah. In general, I would say Switzerland is great. If you have the opportunity to go live there, absolutely do.
Yeah. Now, how was it? Because the EU is a lot stricter compared to BC during the last year or so.
Well, something that all Swiss people will be very sure to tell you is they aren't in Europe.
Yeah.
That's kind of their...
Except for the Small Arms Treaty, which they caved on, fuckers.
Yeah, but there was a lot of economic pressure, and while they're not in Europe, they are also pragmatically aware that they're surrounded by Europe.
Yeah.
And it's not really practical for them to be like, oh, no, we're just going to disregard everything.
Yeah.
Even though I'm sure they could have probably swung that differently.
Could have said, no, we're not doing it. I think they would have been fine, to be honest.
Yeah. Depends who you ask. Really.
Yeah. Now, because you're closer to that whole block, I'm curious of what the fuck is going on in France. Because there was like a almost coup attempt in the last year.
Yeah. What the fuck is going on in France? It's weird, like, because France, only a little bit, maybe like June, is when they started lifting their curfew, which was pretty insane. Like, you had to be home in your house by 7 p.m.
Yeah.
And that was...
the virus cares about time, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly a social, like, people congregate after that, and, like, fair enough. But... like, I know plenty of people living in France who were crossing the border in Switzerland, and it was just like, it's this insane limit on their lives because they have, like, from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. that's it. That's their time to socialize, do chores, get groceries, do whatever, and then they got to be home.
Yeah.
Unless they have, like, a specific form saying they're allowed to be out.
Which makes no sense, because if you're still socializing for those 2 hours, you're still socializing for 2 hours.
And there, like, it used to be in France was, like, you couldn't go more than a kilometer from your house without a form. Yeah. And, like, I have friends who are, like, runners and people, and it's ridiculous. They figured out what was a 1 kilometer radius, and they just did, like, laps around their house, and it's... Especially for people who are going off and running in the countryside away from everyone. Yeah. You want people to be doing that. And I know, obviously, all of France couldn't do that because you have major cities.
Yeah.
But there should have been a little bit of exceptions. And I think a lot of the pushback that's happening right now against Macron and that is just probably French people going... Come on, like, you've been...
Nuts. They're going nuts.
Well, you've been doing this for this long, and then you start trying to, like, push this... Everyone needs to be vaccinated to do things. And, like, vaccination, a whole other issue. But trying to exert that level of control, especially on the French population... is not a good idea.
They don't like being told what to do, even though they have civil law, which is hilarious.
Sure, but these are people who will riot about
everything,
and you tried to tell them that they needed to do a specific thing in order to do, like, French activities, like go out and have wine.
That's the way I kind of laugh at the January 6th thing, because it was not a fucking insurrection. Can we compare this to what happens in France all the fucking time? Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, France. Oh, look, you changed the color of some, I don't know, work uniform. It's time to riot and set things on fire. No offense, France. I do like your cheese.
Yeah, right. It's crazy. Because, I am a martial arts instructor. That's my specialty, Krav Maga. It's my background in psychology. You are a... mechanical engineer and specializing somewhat in particle stuff. There's an idea out there that a lot of scientists or academics or just, I think, douchebags have, that you need to stay in your lane, because we talked about a whole bunch of stuff.
Things you don't just get to say.
Now, we're coming from educated,
authority.
fairly well
experts said this. You should at least be able to inform yourself enough to say, is that true? And I don't mean going on fucking Facebook or Google for 5 minutes and finding an article that agrees with your stupid point of view. I mean going and doing the research, finding the academic papers, actually putting the time in. Because let's be clear, your 5 minutes of Google is not equivalent to someone's years of study and work. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you should be able to go actually look into the issue that you're curious about and find a few opposing positions. And you don't want all one side or all the other. You want to get everything. And then look into it and actually understand it. And I know this is a lot of work. I know it takes time and effort, and you're going to get real confused.
Just tell me what to do.
No, because I'm not going to tell you what to do. Nobody should be telling you what to do. You should be able to go and say, okay, what is actually going on, or what do I think is going on? Here's why I think is what's going on. Here are the specific pieces of information I'm basing this on, not someone's statements, not someone's like press release. And then you go, and then you're allowed to go and spout off on the internet, because maybe you've done some actual intelligent research.
Yeah.
Just so long as I'm clear that I don't respect anyone who goes and says, "Oh, well, I did my research, but I'm not going to tell you what my sources are," or like, I don't feel like actually arguing or discussing this. I just want to claim that you're wrong.
Yeah.
Like, fuck off.
Yeah.
I didn't come here, like, I like arguing. I like discussing because it's an interesting thing. If your whole principle of argument is just telling me I'm wrong, but not telling me why or explaining how I'm wrong, then fuck off.
It's like I made the mistake of really putting myself out there this year on the internet, and I'm just video snippets on Instagram, which you don't see because you don't have followed the wrong guy on Instagram that I thought was you. Anyways,
well done.
I don't remember the name, so I can't unfollow. That's so funny. So I'm just putting snippets of stuff we filmed. I think you're in some of them,
probably
in the UTKM stuff, and. I'm not an expert wrestler or expert, a boxer, but I'm teaching the minimum stuff. And you get people coming and commenting inevitably, "That's fake. It'll never work." Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, like, what's your background? Like, where do you train?
Yeah.
Like, and they never really want to answer it. And they'll be like, "You're this and that." And I'm like, okay, well, one guy was saying I'm a state champ wrestler. I know what I'm doing. Blah 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 blah. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, can you send me links?
Yeah.
He wouldn't do that. And I'm like, hey, if you're actually who you say you are, and next time you're in Vancouver, I'll hold a wrestling seminar for you. And it's just like, they don't know how to deal with that. And I had another person, this is probably some like grade 12 kid, who was like, that would never work, bro. They'll do this. I'm like, are you talking about like this technique? Because like I do jiu-jitsu, like I know what you're talking about. I'm talking about is I'm saying for self-defense application. I'm like, what's your background? And they answer like, oh, I've been doing Taekwondo since middle school and I just started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm like, thank you for indicating you don't know what you're talking about. Like, at least that kid had the balls to say what his background was, right? And that's the thing, right? On the other side, the expertise thing, it's like overly specialized experts. If you're relying on one group of experts specifically for policy and ignoring the other 10 experts who are going to be affected, you're making bad policy.
Well, also, like, well, it is sort of necessary if you want to do cutting-edge research to specialize to a huge degree.
Or I want a brain surgeon who specializes in that to operate on my
fair
brain.
enough. Maybe not like a guy who's used to appendices.
Yeah.
You should still recognize that your research is placed within a system or happens within a massive interconnected system. Nothing that happens in the world is disconnected from everything else.
Yeah.
You don't get to say, oh, well, all I did was reroute this road. I don't understand why property values changed, for example. Like, well, that's a pretty clear connection. But there might be something else, like, oh, I don't understand why I rerouted this road and suddenly we don't see this type of bird here anymore.
Yeah.
Like, everything is connected. And the idea that you're able to just disconnect your field from the rest of the world is kind of silly. Everything you put out research-wise will have an effect, and it links to dozens, if not thousands, of other things.
Yeah. And
I think an expert should be able to place their work in context, which means that, you should be open to criticism from people who aren't in your field, as long as it's not just, I don't believe you because
I'm an expert and you're not.
Or I don't believe you because my 5 minutes of Google found one article among millions that disagrees.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. Which, the media does all the fucking time. They'll pick the one thing.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I have all this other evidence. Like the vitamin D thing, our own health minister was like, that's propaganda. I'm like, here's a link to all of the research all over the world, vitamin D and COVID. Nope, that's propaganda. It's actually not. It's like, what the fuck do I do with this?
Well, and that's a bit of more following the party line.
Yeah.
Like,
We're just underqualified. I don't think they actually understand the science at all, even to be explaining it, and then they make policy on it.
And also, there's a bit of a consistent fear about admitting ignorance.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know most things. I don't know shit about pretty much everything. I know some things about kind of specific topics, and that's my expertise.
Well, my ear's just getting started.
Fair enough. Yeah. And so I can answer questions if you want to know about those things.
Yeah.
If you want to know about other things, well, I'm probably going to go, do some research, find a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how you machine that thing. Oh, okay. Yeah. Now I can answer that.
Real-time problem solving. Like, that's the thing. People don't want to do that. Like, I don't know how to do that. Well, can you figure out how to do it, or do you need someone to help you to figure out how to do it, right? And that's the thing people don't want to admit a lot of the time. Like, I don't know how to do a lot of things. I have this debate with my wife because she's, for whatever reason, very good at problem solving and finding a solution to the problem. And one of the things she's good at, which is a skill in its own that a lot of people don't think is knowing how to ask the right question. And a lot of times people don't know how to ask the right question. So the whole no question is stupid. It's like, well, first of all, I don't believe that some questions are just ridiculous. As far as like, hey, I just spent 3 hours answering that question and you were not listening, so you're an ass for even asking that question. Versus, hey, I don't really understand what you're talking about. Can you help me understand it? And if you're a good teacher, you will. Or you'll give them the resources or the paths. But people forget if you don't know how to ask the right question. Sometimes in order to ask the right question, you actually have to have a surprisingly amount of base knowledge in other things just to ask the right question. I find a lot of scientists or experts or politicians or citizens are just asking the wrong questions, and then they're shocked why they aren't getting what they wanted. Yeah. Like, I'm sure, if you ever had a conversation where someone's asking a question and you answer it, and they're like, that's not what I wanted. And you're like, okay, well, so the correct thing to do if you care is to start inquiring about, well, what do you want? What do you want? And a lot of people won't do that because they just get frustrated because they don't know how to ask the question to get what they want.
Well, it's also something I see a lot in design and everything else like that. Like, if somebody comes to me with a problem or a thing they want me to do, I am not going to be able to give you a solution that's just like out of the box, ready to go. Yeah. My job is to, as you say, sit there and ask the right questions. Like, and it usually comes down to who, what, where, when, why. Yeah. Like, who's going to use this? Yeah. And what training do they have? Yeah. Where is this going to be? Like, are you going to put this in a radioactive environment? Because that changes what materials you can use. Yeah. Why do you need to do this? Why is actually really important? Yeah. Because a lot of times there'll be a project like, oh, okay, we need to build this like really complicated thing that's able to be remotely retracted and all this stuff, all these intricate systems. Okay, why? Well, we want to be able to replace this. Yeah, but how many times in its life cycle are you going to need to do that? Ideally once. So you want me to build like this automated retraction system for a single use? That's insane. All you need to do is just actually just take apart this thing. Yeah. Because otherwise I'm just going to spend millions of dollars of time and effort designing a really cool system. It'll work great. But you didn't need to do that. Yeah. But if I didn't ask why you needed it and why that was a motivating factor, I just wasted millions of dollars.
Because I thought it was cool, bro.
And cool. I love designing cool things. They're awesome. But it's also part of my job to step in and be like, you don't need to do that. Yeah. You absolutely do not. I can make that work with a piece of sheet metal with 4 holes in it. Yeah. Like, I know this is cool. I know you think like 3D printing will solve all your problems, which is, fuck, I love that. Yeah. Everyone wants to 3D print everything.
So, yeah, why? What's wrong with 3D printing?
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. It's also, for example, if you want to make a chamber that holds vacuum pressure, 3D printing is not really your best bet. Yeah. Because unless you get very expensive components,
Yeah.
they tend to be porous.
Yeah.
Which, if you put them in vacuum, means you get constant outgassing, which fucks with your vacuum. If you want to contain vacuum within them, it means, well, that's not going to happen. It's full of holes.
Yeah.
In some cases, it does work better. Like, for example, when you order a big piece of aluminum, it might have voids in it.
Yeah.
And if you're using that to manufacture a vacuum chamber,
Yeah.
you might discover that there's just a hole straight through it that you can't see, but it's big enough to allow air, and you're fucked.
Yeah.
It's very application specific. It might be that 3D printing is the best thing for this application. And for hobbyists, like if you want to, I don't know, build drones and you want to build like these little lightweight pieces out of ABS or whatever, absolutely go to it. You don't need it. All the other machine shop stuff, like, don't bother getting a mill or a lathe or all this crap.
Yeah.
Get a 3D printer, because your application doesn't need things made out of steel, aluminum, all these other materials.
Yeah.
But if you want to do like fairly complicated, high strength, like specific application stuff, usually you don't need to 3D print.
Yeah.
Like I can make you a pretty sturdy thing out of something like sheet metal with just like a set of rollers and a nice press.
Yeah. That takes skill. Not everyone has that, so they like the 3D.
Well, I mean, it's not like I have a huge amount of knowledge here, but I'm willing to watch YouTube videos until I understand, and then mess around with some scrap metal and figure out how it works.
Yeah, that's like kind of everyone always wants, what's the new thing? What's the new thing? It's like you don't always need a new thing. Sometimes what we had was just fine.
Yeah, you just needed a thing.
Yeah. How do I solve this problem? And then you find out some other culture had the solution the whole time. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah, and that's where the broader knowledge base comes in. You should have, just be curious and like be willing to admit you're wrong and don't know things.
Yeah.
Because I don't know a lot of things. I don't know a lot about my current job, honestly.
I'm figuring it out as I go.
Well, like I didn't study the spectrum of light, the various ways that solar absorbers work and all this other stuff. I've learned that on the job, and I've been willing to learn it. And sure, now I'm talking about learning to code.
Yeah.
Now I can code in Python because it's an easy way to do data analysis. Fantastic. Sure, let's put that into that, let it run, and I can do other things.
Hilariously, Lex Friedman was just saying that's the best place to start if you want to learn to code Python.
Oh yeah, Python's great.
Yeah.
Like, just tells you.
I've never used it, so I have no idea.
It tells you what's wrong, and it's very accessible.
Yeah.
And I've also learned C++, which is like, it's annoying, honestly.
Yeah, that's why I don't do it, because that's when I tried to take programming classes like a long time ago. They were using it. I'm like, nope, I'm out. I'm not a tedious enough type person to want to sit there and
and I mean, I'm just learning this like by downloading Visual Studio and watching YouTube videos. Like, here's how you do it. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I think that again, it's just be curious, as you said. Figure out how stuff works. If you're open-minded, you can be placed into a lot of places and just figure it out as you go.
And you will make mistakes. You will fuck up all the time. Just own that and just move forward.
Yeah.
Don't linger on, I fucked up. And it's like, I fucked up. I won't do that again.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good place to end.
Yeah.
Be curious. You will fuck up. Deal with it. Is there anything we didn't talk about you wanted to talk about still, or is that good?
No, I'm good.
Okay, and you don't exist on the internet, so I won't put it.
That is entirely fine. I'm good with being a ghost.
Yeah.
Y'all can fuck off.
Yeah, sounds about right. Okay, well, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're listening to The Warrior's Day. Brought to you by Urban Tactics Krav Maga. Turning lambs into lions.